my public life is before me.
As Premier, I've always welcomed the accountability that comes with facing the voters.
And we are going to put forward a plan that is a better deal for Nova Scotians.
What people need is for health care to actually improve. What people need is to be able to afford their homes.
And I know you will believe me when I say that when I sit down in solitude to the labors of my profession, the only questions I ask myself are, what is right?
This is a plan for lower taxes, for more doctors, and higher wages.
And this is a contract with Nova Scotians.
We can build a province where everyone has the health care they need.
What is just?
We can make sure that no child goes hungry.
We'll double the seniors' care grant.
We need to create a province where young people can afford to live.
What is for the public good?
Two centuries ago, Joseph Howe, a journalist, public servant, and poet, spoke those words and stood on the floor of this legislature.
Tonight, more people will walk into the annals of history to write the next chapter of politics in Nova Scotia. We'll find out who right now. This is Nova Scotia Votes.
Good evening and welcome to our election night special. A warm welcome to viewers across the country joining us on CBC News Network and online. We're also offering a digital stream of this special featuring American Sign Language. You can find that on our CBC Nova Scotia website. I'm Tom Murphy.
And I'm Amy Smith. We're here at Nova Scotia's beautiful Province House, home of the House of Assembly. It is the oldest legislative building in Canada, home to countless arguments about Confederation, human rights, politics, and policy that carved a path for people here and across the country. Tonight, we'll find out who will form Nova Scotia's 42nd government. Will Tim Houston and his progressive Conservatives be rewarded for this snap election call with an even stronger majority government? Can the second-place Liberals under Zach Churchill gain ground? Or could the NDP move up from third place in Claudia Chender's first provincial election as leader?
Well, over the next few hours, we will have the most experienced team in Nova Scotia politics to guide you through the night. Amy and I are joined on set by Paul Withers, covering his 11th provincial election tonight, and our provincial affairs reporter, Michael Gorman, fresh off 30 days of campaign coverage. But before we hear from Paul and Mike, we have to take you to Brett Ruskin in our newsroom, where he has spent the day tracking a big change to how results will be released by Elections Nova Scotia tonight. Brett.
Tom, a big change from a little place. Mushaboom, Nova Scotia, is where there was a delayed opening. Let's take a look here. It was in the 22nd riding in the electoral district in the Eastern Shore. So at 22 Powers Road, that's the Mushaboom Fire Hall, and it opened late. It opened at 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock like the rest of the other districts, like the rest of the other polling stations. So what does that mean? Well, they're going to be staying open until 9 p.m., but that means that Elections Nova Scotia will not be releasing any of the results until 9 p.m., until all of the polls have closed. They don't want any results coming out while people are still lined up, perhaps there at the Mushaboom Fire Hall. So keep in mind, if you are listening in or watching this right now, when you are in line, stay in line. If you are in line and the polls close, you can still vote. So this means we won't get any results until 9 p.m. But here's what this also means, is that those other polling stations, every other polling station in the province, can start counting ballots right now. Lock the doors. Once everyone has voted, they can start counting those ballots. So that means that in addition to the surge of results that we are anticipating from those e-ballots, from the tablets that 160,000 people voted on, we are going to also have a surge of results, an hour's worth of counting of the paper ballots that were cast today. So these two surges working together, possibly making, a tidal wave of results coming in the next hour or so, probably right at that 9 o'clock mark.
All right, Brett, thanks for that. And to aid with all of that, we have this handy-dandy clock at the bottom right of your screen to let you know the countdown to get to that critical point tonight, which we think will be in about 55 minutes when those results will start to pour in. Paul Withers, I want to turn to you now. The Eastern Shore, that riding is one of the ones that you're looking at in this election campaign. We'll get to that in a little bit here first, but let's do a pullback, look at the larger picture of tonight. And it is a big night.
It certainly is. You know, Tim Houston is trying something that hasn't happened in this province for 40 years. He's called a snap election 3 years into a majority mandate. The last one to do it was another progressive conservative Premier, John Buchanan, in 1984. And Tom, he was rewarded with a smashing electoral victory in that election. He was aided by discontent, building discontent that occurred under another federal Liberal government led by a Prime Minister Trudeau, if that sounds familiar.
It's sounding familiar for sure.
The Conservatives are confident that they're going to win this tonight. But before we do that, let's look at the Nova Scotia electoral map as of the last time that Nova Scotians actually cast ballots. And there you see it. And that, by the way, that map includes the last vote last year, and Preston by-election won by the Progressive Conservatives. The PCs held 32 seats, the Liberals held 16, the New Democrats 6 seats, and there is one independent, that's Elizabeth Smith McCrossan in Cumberland North. That's the gray boundary that you see up at the top of the screen. There are 55 seats in the Nova Scotia legislature. The magic number tonight, Tom, is 28, or at least that's one of the magic numbers we'll be looking for. That's what it takes to form a majority government.
All right, lots of ridings to have eyes on for sure, but you are particularly interested in 2 or 3 of those, aren't you?
That's right, Tom. I want to take a look at Nova Scotia's premier bellwether riding. That's Eastern Shore, where Kent Smith, the Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture, is the incumbent. You know, voters in this riding have elected a member of the government side in every election since 1970. That's 54 years. And 15 straight elections. Chances are, if Kent Smith is going back to Province House, so will Tim Houston as Premier. Now, we'll also be taking a look at what happens in suburban Halifax. Suburban Halifax is really the stronghold of the Liberal Party in Nova Scotia right now. It's half of the seats that they hold in the legislature. And I will be taking a particular interest in Clayton Park West. That's a riding where there is no Liberal incumbent. It's been a Liberal riding for 20 years. Elizabeth Domadon, a Filipino-Canadian dental hygienist, is trying to hang on for the Liberals here. This will tell us whether the Liberals have any gas in the tank. And I'll also be taking a look at the ridings in Sackville. In particular, we'll be looking at Sackville-Cobequid. This is a Conservative seat that Paul Russell, a councillor in HRM, the Halifax Regional Municipality, is trying to hold on for the PCs. The NDP's hopes are on Paul Wozni, a former president of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union. The NDP want to break out of their stronghold in downtown Halifax and Dartmouth. It would start in ridings like this in Sackville. Tom?
All right, Paul, yeah, just a few of the seats to be watching tonight, but there's many more to watch
there
as well.
are many, many more, 55 in total. And of course, you're fresh off the campaign trail, Mike. You've been looking at all of them, but you've got some key ridings that you think are really worth keeping a close eye on.
Yeah, that's right. And let's start down in southwest Nova Scotia in Clare. If there is such a thing as a safe Liberal seat, ordinarily this would be it. Clare has voted Liberal for the last 3 decades, and Ronnie LeBlanc, by all accounts, is a well-liked and effective MLA at the constituency level. The problem is this is also the epicenter of where frustration with the federal government can be found, and the federal Liberal brand in particular down there over the way the federal government has managed concerns about illegal fishing. Ronnie LeBlanc himself has said that this has created problems for him on the campaign trail. Let's move up to HRM, where Paul was discussing that earlier. Halifax, Armdale, this is a great example of where the Liberals have said that out on the campaign trail, they're taking it from both sides. Both the PCs and the NDP like their chances in this district, and in particular for the PCs, if they're to get that toehold in peninsular Halifax, Halifax-Armdale could be the place where that happens. And then if we go all the way up to Cape Breton Island, Cindy member 2, Derek Momberket, popular local MLA. He's no stranger to close races, and this could be another one for him tonight. One thing I'm looking for in particular up here, Tim Houston, through his first mandate, at times clashed with the government in Cape Breton Regional Municipality. I'll be looking to see if there's any hangover from that.
All right, some interesting storylines to follow, for sure. Thank you, Mike.
Lots of ridings to watch right across this province tonight. We also have reporters all across Nova Scotia at the Leaders' headquarters this evening. Jean LaRoche, who has left his office in the basement here at the legislature to spend the evening with Zach Churchill and his Liberal supporters. Taryn Grant is on the Halifax waterfront with Claudia Chender's NDP. And we begin with Houston's headquarters in Pictou East, where the CBC's Shayna Luck is standing by. Shayna, Tim Houston called an early election, ignoring his own legislation for a fixed election date. How did his campaign go?
Well, Tom, you can tell how the campaign went from the buzz in this room. I don't know if you can hear it behind me, but there are a lot of PC supporters who are showing up. It's a real mood of celebration here. The pizza is here, the drinks are flowing. People here, some people started showing up quite early indeed, saying that they had to get the good seats. So that kind of tells you how many people they're expecting tonight. Now, of course, the PCs are seeking another majority government, and if the polls are correct, they are on track to get it. Now, Tim Houston, as you mentioned, Tom, he called this election a bit early. He said that he needed a new mandate from Nova Scotians to address the high cost of living. He's also said that that would give him a stronger voice to negotiate with Ottawa. Now, on the high cost of living, we know that's a top concern for Nova Scotians. They're telling us about the high cost of groceries, having difficulty affording housing. And the PCs have responded with a platform that includes measures like dropping the HST from 15 percentage points to 14. They're talking about raising the minimum wage. As well, the voters, though, will remember that the PCs were elected in 2021 based on a signature promise to fix health care. And on that front, Tim Houston has said that progress has been made through the last 3.5 years. He's pointed to more doctors and nurses being attracted to this province. The other parties have said they don't feel enough progress has been made. They've pointed to things like the doubling of that wait list, tens of thousands of Nova Scotians on a wait list to get a family doctor. But to those kinds of concerns, Tim Houston has said throughout this campaign that healthcare is a problem that's going to take a long time to fix. And the PCs tonight very confident that Nova Scotians are going to give them another 4 years to get that job done. Tom?
Shayna Luck at the Wellness Centre in Pictou County tonight. Thanks very much, Shayna. She's with the PCs. Jean is with the Liberals tonight, where they, of course, were not happy with the PCs calling this election early either, and had some complaints about the PCs, certainly during the campaign. After 30 days on the trail, how are Zach Churchill and his Liberals feeling tonight, John?
Normally you talk about a tense calm or something as trite as that. Let's call it a tenseness tonight, because it's a smaller room, not as big as where Shayna is, and as yet very few people have shown up. We know that the Liberal leader was here earlier. He actually got up way before the birds. He headed to Cape Fourchou to see off the lobster fleet, which we know dumping day was delayed a day because of high winds and choppy seas. Well, the political winds are blowing directly at Zach Churchill. He's got an uphill battle. We know that after the last election, he had 17 seats, lost one in Preston, as Paul said. 4 more of his team did not reoffer, and of course, 2 of them crossed the floor, one of them just before the election. So incumbency plays a factor, and when you're down to just 10 incumbents, 55 seats is a lot. So the hope is here not for first place, but to end up in second place. We know Zach Churchill inherited a party that had been bounced from government into official opposition status, and that's as low as he wants to go. So that's what people here will be watching for tonight. Tom.
All right, thanks, Sean. We'll be talking to you later tonight from the Liberal election night headquarters. Taryn Grant, Claudia Chender has criticized the snap election and then rolled out her platform really somewhat later than the other major parties. How would you sum up Chender's first campaign as leader?
Well, Tom, you're absolutely right. The NDP got off to a slow start in this election. It was 5 days before we heard any new policy ideas from them, and it was the 3rd week before we got their full platform. Another big challenge for them in this campaign is that the NDP have been really strong in the last few years advocating for housing and for affordability, but those are issues that every party's talking about in this election, and so, of course, they're having to distinguish themselves from the the Liberals and the Tories in ways that they have not had to do before. Another critical challenge is that Claudia Chender is someone that a lot of Nova Scotians didn't know at the start of this campaign. She's been an MLA since 2017, but it's only 2 years since she became leader, and Nova Scotians haven't had a lot of opportunity to get to know her. So while that was a challenge, it's also been an opportunity in this campaign for the NDP to introduce Nova Scotians to their leader and to try to get them to trust her and put their votes towards a party led by Claudia Chender. There is a lot of optimism from New Democrats around this election, and that's something that I've been learning from conversations over the last few days and the last few weeks, but it's something that's really palpable in this room tonight. There are a lot of excited New Democrats who are waiting for the results to come in. A good night for them would be holding on to the seats that they've got, the 6 seats that they've got, and picking up 2, 3, 4 even or more seats to get them maybe from third place into second. You heard Jean talking about how the Liberals are trying to hold on to second. The NDP are gunning to jump ahead of them into second place and form the official opposition. So a good night is picking up some seats. A great night is moving into second place. Tom.
All right, thanks, Erin. Yeah, we expect to see the Liberal and the NDP really battling it out there for second place for sure. We also have the CBC's Kyle Moore. He's live with us in Cape Breton tonight. He's in the Sydney Mines area with the camp of Fred Tilley, who was the Liberal MLA of Northside Westmount when he crossed the floor to the PCs just before the election was called. Kyle?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. And as you can hear, the music is playing here. Supporters have gathered at Fred Tilley's headquarters here in Sydney Mines. You might be able to tell the decor behind me is blue and white. I think a lot of people thought it might be red and white at this time. That's because Tilley has been the Liberal MLA for Northside Westmount for a little over 3 years. But he decided to cross the floor less than a week before Tim Houston called the election. Now, Tilley said basically he made the decision because he thought he would better serve his constituents as part of the government. Now, this riding comes with a bit of controversy as well. The Liberal Party has accused Fred Tilley of stealing voter information, and they have actually filed a complaint with the RCMP. Now, Tilley says that it was information that he gathered. He feels it belongs to him and that it was his to take. Now, another twist to this riding is the Liberal candidate is Danny Laffin. Laffin, of course, helped Fred Tilley get elected in 2021. He worked on his campaign then. Laffin as well was a PC candidate in 2019, but he was booted from the party before the election even began. Now, there's no reason why, or Laffin would not speak to that, only saying that his focus now is on this election and this campaign, of course. Now, this riding here, traditionally Tory blue. Murray Ryan held the seat 2019 to 2021. Eddie Orrell was before that. He held the seat for about 8 years. And then Cecil Clark, the now mayor of the CBRM, he won the seat in 2001. You have to go all the way back to 1997. That's when Liberal Russell McClellan was elected here in Northside Westmount. But as you can tell, a lot of people have gathered here for Fred Tilley. Tilley, along with his supporters, are hoping they will be able to once again turn this riding blue when the election is called later tonight. Tom.
All right, thanks very much for that, Kyle. Kyle is in Sydney Mines tonight, where they're enjoying a little country music as they await the results to come in. I draw your attention again to that clock on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. As Brett Ruskin was explaining earlier, there has been a delay in the balloting in the Eastern Shore riding there, and so that set things back an hour. So we got the countdown for you there ready, poised when we think the first results will be coming in for about 41 minutes from now. But there's lots to digest and lots to chat about before then for sure, and we've got lots of people to do it.
That's right. We're joined by a packed panel of political insiders hosted by our moderator, the CBC's own Vernon Ramasar. Vern.
Thank you, Amy. I'm joined by Kelly Regan, who served as a Liberal MLA in Nova Scotia for 15 years, including 8 years in Cabinet. At dissolution, she was the longest-serving member of the current House. Chris Lydon is the president at M5 Public Affairs and was part of Tim Houston's transition team after the last election. Barbara Imodi. He used to teach communications at Mount St. Vincent University and is a former communications director for the Nova Scotia NDP. And of course, our very own, the host of CBC's Power and Politics, David Cochrane. Nice to have you all here. But panelists, let me start by asking, what are you expecting, or what should we be looking for this evening, and what should we keep an eye on? Let me start with you, Chris, since you're the one with the most optimism I detect on this panel.
Oh, yeah. It's abounding in optimism. Well, I think Barb's got some optimism too. And what's interesting, actually, is I think we're all going to have very interesting narratives tonight. And by narratives, I don't mean fiction. I think there's going to be an interesting tale to tell, sort of in each party's result, and obviously we'll get into that as we get going. Clearly, it's the polls would suggest, and the last several polls from all of the pollsters have been quite consistent, including one, full disclosure, that's affiliated with my company, MQO, that released a poll that said the most recent numbers were sort of in the 51, 25, 2022 range, and that's just going into the final weekend. So we'll see if those numbers hold. If they did, they would be quite historic. Sort of Buchanan 1984 era historic that could likely push the seat count into the 40s. But I think the Progressive Conservative War Room isn't necessarily expecting that level, but they're not taking anything for granted and spending all kinds of time knocking on doors and collecting data, et cetera. I think, again, with optimism, looking forward to the result tonight, and again to see if it is in fact a validation of kind of what the battle plan is, less so about calling an early election, more so about having Nova Scotians validate that they recognize that Premier Houston has a plan. It's quite lengthy. They've engaged in hundreds of initiatives to tackle healthcare and affordability and housing, and whether or not people believe and endorse that plan is working and want to give them a shot at some more time in order to get a lot of those solutions finalized.
Kelly, Zach Churchill has had a bit of an uphill climb. He's had some defections. He's had some other issues. He's got the federal government to deal with as well. What do you see happening this evening? What are you looking for?
Well, I would say that, off the top, we did have a number of people who retired, as did the Progressive Conservatives. But when you have a smaller caucus, you feel those retirements more. So it is a bit of an uphill climb when you do have to replace retiring members. What I did see during the election campaign was Zach Churchill really stepping up. They released a really comprehensive platform that gave a lot of people something to look at and look through in the early days of the campaign. And then Zach just rallied the troops, did a great job on 2 successive debates, and rallied the troops from one end of the province to the other, because the Liberal Party has seats from one end to the other, and really got out there and worked hard. So I'm hoping that we will retain our official opposition status tonight, and so very positive going into the evening.
I know most parties would hope to grow their previous results. That's not something that you're anticipating at this point.
I think there are a couple of seats that I'm keeping an eye on, but it was a bit of an uphill slog, particularly because there was an early election call. There were people who were planning to run next year, but their circumstances right this moment didn't lend it to that. So it just made it a bigger hill to climb.
So it's a whole strategy.
We always want to hold on to some more, but never say never. Right?
Barbara, this is sort of an optimistic time for Claudia Chender and for the NDP.
Absolutely.
Traditionally an urban party in Nova Scotia.
Yes.
Are you looking to see if that grows beyond the urban centres?
I think that is very important. We expect that there will be growth in the Halifax Regional Municipality, which is nice to have more depth, but you want some breadth. And if you are going to form government, which if the NDP is the official opposition, then really that is a government in waiting scenario. You really need to feel that you are growing in rural areas. So looking not only for more rural seats, but also more rural areas where the NDP comes in second. And that will show a return after the quiet period that followed the end of the Dexter government.
Is your gut feeling there will be some growth this evening?
Definitely, I think so, because they have been successful in the party, I think, in really promoting Claudia. And that is a very particular NDP thing, that the NDP does well with a leader that people generally relate to as being just decent and ethical and feeling really Canadian. You know, Tommy Douglas, the most popular Canadian ever. You know, Ed Broadbent, you know, Lexa McDonough, Daryl Dexter. We have a big history of those personalities being so reassuring and solid to people. Claudia is that person, but has not had the opportunity. So in many ways, that will be, I think, reflected in the results we'll see tonight.
And David, I gather when we spoke earlier, you're thinking this may be bucking a trend this evening if Houston grows, and we need only look next door to what happened recently.
Yeah. Tim Houston has a real chance to do something none of the Canadian premiers have really been able to do in the provincial elections we've seen in the last little while. And that is not only to hold on to his government, but to grow his vote share and to grow his seat count. So, Vern, you look across the country, in British Columbia, David Eby's still the premier, but he won that election by the skin of his teeth, right? And the numbers came way down. In Saskatchewan, Scott Moe, still premier, but a greatly reduced majority, largely shut out of the big cities of Regina and Saskatoon. And right next door, as you mentioned, Blaine Higgs, you know, an incumbent premier who not only lost his majority, he lost his seat. And it's a switch, because what we saw during the COVID elections is that people embraced continuity and they voted for consistency. Ever since, they've been voting for change. Now, Tim Houston wasn't in power during the height of COVID, but you know, he's been there since 2021. And he has this opportunity now, if all of this analysis is right, and I have no reason to doubt it, not only to win, but to grow vote share and to grow his seat. And that is something incumbents haven't done in Canada, they haven't done around the world. There's been this appetite for change. And if he does accomplish this, I think it's because you can look at the fact that Tim Houston really focused on a couple of key things: healthcare, affordability, and housing. He never got into any of the culture war issues on pronoun policy and trans policy that we saw with Blaine Higgs in New Brunswick, that we saw with Scott Moe in Saskatchewan. He's a progressive conservative in that Nova Scotia tradition, and a focus on issues that appeal to voters right from Yarmouth to Sydney, and gives them a reason to vote for him no matter how they voted in the past or how they'll vote in the future, because they're bread and butter issues that cut across every voting cohort. And that's the key to incumbents winning. Stick to the basics, keep the main thing, and that helps you win.
Well, we've got lots to talk about this evening. In the meantime, though, we throw it back to the desk with Tom and Amy.
All right, thanks so much, Vern. Yeah, strategy always plays such a big role in election campaigns, doesn't it? And so with that in mind, we should head over to the NDP headquarters. Taryn Grant is standing by with someone who knows a little bit about election strategy for sure. She has a campaign advisor with her, I believe, from the NDP. Taryn.
Yep, that's right. I'm here with Lucas Wyde. Lucas, can you tell me about what was the strategy for the NDP in this election campaign over the last month?
Well, this election we had a couple of objectives. The first one was we really wanted to introduce Claudia to Nova Scotians. It's her first time as leader running a general election. So that was our first goal. The second one is obviously in any election, we want to grow our caucus. We want more New Democrats in the legislature.
And what's your assessment of how it went?
I think overall the campaign was a success. The more Nova Scotians got to know Claudia and got to see Claudia, they liked what they saw. Her message of more affordability on homes, more access to primary care, and putting more money back in people's pockets, people were very interested in her.
Of course, the ultimate measure of success is going to be how many seats do you win tonight, but there are other metrics that the party can look at. What will you be dissecting in the days and weeks ahead?
Well, I mean, I think the seats is the obvious one. Do we put more New Democrats in the legislature? But we also want to see of our overall vote count and our percentage of vote across the province. Are we continuing to grow? Are people listening to our message, and are they ready to elect more New Democrats?
You've been working with this party for a long time, back to the Daryl Dexter days. What do you think are important distinctions between New Democrats of a decade ago and the New Democrats in Nova Scotia today?
Well, I mean, New Democrats have been on the side of working families, middle-class families. That continues, but I think Claudia brings a new perspective to it. She's a mother. She's a very hard worker. She's thoughtful. She's bright. And I think more Nova Scotians saw her, the more they really liked what she was saying.
All right, well, we'll see how the night goes, and maybe we'll be chatting with you again. Back to you, Tom.
All right, Taryn, thanks so much for that at the NDP headquarters tonight. Yeah, strategy, such a big part of elections, but when it's an early election campaign, all the more difficult, I'm sure. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but first, look at the clock, Amy.
Look at that, halfway there till the results come in. It's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, 30 minutes until we think we get the first results, so keep an eye on your clock there.
Definitely.
While we set the stage for you, so to speak, here about this election, and it is an early election call. That provides a whole different set of challenges for political parties.
A different kettle of fish. Yeah. You know, we weren't supposed to be here tonight. This is supposed to be July of next year. How did that change the whole trajectory?
Well, Tim Houston, as most people know, was elected in 2021 primarily on a promise to fix health care.
That was bill number one.
Bill number one, the first piece of legislation he passed was a fixed election date for, as you say, July of 2025 rather. But last summer, he started to muse about the idea of potentially going early. And then we saw the characteristic hallmarks of an early election call. The PC started nominating candidates. The PC government, in the month of October leading up to the election call, made $400 million in funding announcements and commitments around the province.
It's always a telltale sign.
If there is one, that is it. And that led us to the, at that point, no longer surprise election call. Although, Paul, it seemed to me anyway that for some people it was still a surprise.
It sure was. And, the New Democrats, at this point, whether it was the early election call or not, they did not have the horses to run a province-wide campaign. Some of that can be attributed to the early election call. Certainly, it caused problems for the Liberals, and I can point to 3 ridings where it really did catch them off guard. Let's start with Chester St. Margaret's. Chester St. Margaret's is a PC-held riding. The incumbent there is Danielle Barkhouse. The Liberal there on the right, Laura Mulrooney, that was a well-known operator of a popular Chester bakery there. A lot of people bought bread from her over the years. She's recently sold it. But she was expecting to be running in July. The early election call really did catch her off guard. She's had to take a break from door knocking to fulfill a prior commitment to tally Christmas trees for the Lunenburg Balsam Fir Co-op to get those Christmas trees out the door. So she's been counting Christmas trees and not knocking on doors. That wasn't her plan in this election. Let's go to Shelburne, where it's even worse for the Liberals. Yeah, there's a candidate without a picture. That's because Debbie Muse is just a name on a ballot. Never saw that happen in Shelburne before. That's either a sign of disorganization or just how poor the Liberal brand is in a big fishing riding like Shelburne. Let's go to Guysborough-Tracadie. This is another PC stronghold, I would say. Greg Morrill, the Minister of Agriculture, is the incumbent there. Another candidate without a name, that's George Grant. He's in his 80s. He told the Guysborough Journal there he had no intention of campaigning, but he just agreed to let his name stand. His name was removed from the party website. These are not signs. These are not healthy signs for a political party, especially one with a track record and sort of part of the Nova Scotia political culture, like the Nova Scotia Liberal Party. These are all bad signs for the Liberals.
Yeah, all part of the strategy playing out for the PCs, and obviously the PCs, are expected to do well tonight, and we'll see how that turns out. 27 minutes on the clock.
It's counting down,
and counting down. We will get a clearer picture of how the night begins to unfold within about less than 30 minutes for sure. Talking about strategy, let's head our way over to the PC headquarters now in Pictou County. Shayna Luck is standing by with the co-chair of the PC campaign, Tara Miller.
That's right, Tom. I'm here with Tara Miller, who ran two of Tim Houston's campaigns. Can you tell me about how this campaign compares to last campaign?
Thank you, Shayna. Yeah, so it's been a joint effort for sure. Myself and my repeat co-chair, Cameron McKean, and we have a fabulous team. This campaign, we had fabulous candidates in 2021, and the voters responded to that, obviously, with the majority government that we were able to return. And that success continued again in this campaign. We went in with about 30 incumbents, I believe, at the end, and then had 25 new candidates. And these are all quality, credible candidates, ranging from educators and healthcare workers and small business owners, community leaders, folks that, were unionized and non-unionized. So the message that Tim Houston, through 2021 and forward, was able to share really resonated with these candidates who represent all Nova Scotians across the province. And we really are looking forward tonight to seeing those folks join the Houston government back when they return.
Now you're in a very different position going into this campaign than you were going into 2021.
Yes.
How has that affected, I think, the mood tonight?
The mood is similar to what it was in 2021, I would say, Shayna. The same work happened. We put our heads down. Every candidate knocked on doors every day with the exception of Remembrance Day. We took nothing for granted. We didn't take the voters for granted. You know, one key distinction I would say is that the people of Nova Scotia heard Tim Houston say in 221, healthcare is an issue. We all knew that. I've inherited this problem. I'm going to do my best with my team to fix it. It's going to take time. Be patient with us. We will make a difference. And that's exactly what's happened since 221. He's still not saying it's fixed. Of course it's not. There's lots of work to do. But the message to Nova Scotians, which I believe has really resonated with them, is like the path is in action, is in motion. And we will continue on this path with the good work we've done in healthcare. You know, also different, of course, from 221 is the fact that healthcare is now still the #1 issue, properly so, with lots of work that has been done and will be done. As an aside, someone told me tonight that the Nova Scotia Health app, which is a direct result of the Tim Houston government, has been downloaded by 510,000 people. So 1 in 2 people are now using that app in Nova Scotia, which is tremendous, right? That opens up so much efficiency and so much possibility for healthcare. That's just one example. But the other issues, of course, in this campaign, affordability, big issues, pocketbook issues, housing affordability, and the impact of the carbon tax on Nova Scotians as they're struggling to make ends meet. So in 221, the focus was singularly on fixing and starting the fix for healthcare. And now we're in a place where we can respond, the government can respond to these affordability issues by, you know, raising wages with a higher minimum wage. Lowering taxes, increasing the personal exemption bracket. So those are all things that we've been able to evolve with times. Times change, and I think the collection of all those things have resonated with Nova Scotians, and we'll see how much it's resonated tonight.
Certainly, we'll see starting in just about half an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about results, though, we're all waiting for results.
Yes.
And of course, you're wanting to better the seat count. You know, for you, what are you expecting? What are you looking for and hoping for?
We want to have Nova Scotians represented by candidates who believe in Tim Houston's vision and want to work with him and with the current team to make that vision and that plan continue. So that's our focus. It's not about raising the seat count. It's about making sure that we have, you know, new and old MLAs to join Premier Houston and the journey forward, because it still will be a difficult journey. And these folks that have put their names on the ballot and the teams in their communities who have rallied around them to run this marathon sprint that we inevitably have in any kind of a provincial, municipal, or federal campaign, you know, it's really about the work that those folks have done and celebrating that and, you know, hoping that that is what Nova Scotians will respond to.
Tara Miller, thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Tara Miller, PC campaign co-chair.
All right, Shana, thank you very much for that. The perspective on an election campaign like this from the co-chair of the PC campaign. Let's get you down to the other end of the province now, down into Yarmouth, where Jean Laroche is with the Liberals tonight. He has a take and some help getting this explained to him from a candidate, a Liberal candidate, who is with him in the Yarmouth area tonight. Jean.
That's correct, Tom. I'm here with Laura Lee Murphy, who is the candidate in Argyll, what has been the safest Tory seat in the riding. And my first question to you, Laura Lee, is how did they convince you to run in that particular riding?
Well, actually, I approached Zach with my interest in running. I was complaining daily every time I turned on the television or the radio, and I feel if I'm going to complain that much, I need to try to do something about it.
Complaining about what?
Tim Houston's policies, waste of money, mismanagement of funds, mismanagement of healthcare, those sort of things. Yeah.
Now, you come from a part of the province that depends a lot on the lobster fishery, and we've heard a lot of people angry at the federal Liberals for not doing enough to curtail what they see as an illegal fishery. How big a drag was the federal Liberal Party on your particular campaign?
I mean, of course it was, and that was part of Tim Houston's message, was that we were the same as the federal party, which of course is not true. I'm hoping that people understand the difference. And the problem with the fishery in Nova Scotia is as soon as those catches hit land, it's now a provincial issue. And it's not being dealt with. There are fines in place, and they're not being given out, and we need to address that.
And what do you hope for tonight for the party in general?
I hope that the party increases its popularity. We've run a very clean campaign, I think. It's been a very positive campaign for me, especially. I've really enjoyed meeting all the residents. I had a goal of talking to all 6,000 people, and I fell short of that because I ran out of time. But it's been a very positive experience for me, and I think you'll see me again.
You'll do this again?
I will do this again, absolutely.
All right, that is Laura Lee Murphy, who is the Liberal candidate in Argyll, arguably one of the toughest seats for a Liberal to win in this province. Tom.
All right, Jean, appreciate that, and thank you for that indeed. All right, drawing people's attention to the clock again, because we're down to 20 minutes now, and for people who are just tuning in, I should remind you that there was a delay at a poll in Mushaboom on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia. That's set things back an hour, and so that's why the results aren't coming in. We do expect they will pour in very quickly at the top of the clock, so in about 19 or 20 minutes from now. And that's when you'll start to see the PC, Liberal, NDP, and Independents start to light up there on the television screen. So stay tuned for that. Lots of excitement building as we make our way to that.
I think we're going to see a lot of excitement as soon as that clock hits zero. I'm looking forward to the momentum and then the great influx of votes. But, you know, Mike, you've been covering this campaign from start to finish. What's your big takeaway from all of it?
Well, you know, there are different observations for each of the three parties and the campaigns they ran. But one thing that does stand out about the PCs, and in fairness to them, organizers for the campaign predicted it would be like this. Usually when a campaign is running for re-election and it looks like it's smooth sailing, they're happy to keep their heads down and go about their business and leave it at that. This campaign decided early on that they were going to take swings. They were not going to allow their opponents to try to describe them or position them. And we saw that regularly, particularly in the first half of the campaign. Near daily news releases, social media targeting from the PCs towards opponents. Sometimes it was general. We heard Ms. Murphy there talking about comparing the provincial and federal Liberals and trying to lump them together. But the PCs also made a point of targeting certain NDP seats where the representatives weren't from those districts. They made a point of going after specific candidates, and you know, whether that's because they felt they had a chance there and they were close, we'll find out in perhaps 18 minutes. But it was a decided strategy from the PCs that while it bucks the norm, they felt that was the approach they wanted to take. Paul, I mean, you saw that in particular as you drilled down into some of these districts.
That's right. You know, it was a combative and abrasive approach that we saw from the Progressive Conservatives in this election campaign. All's fair in politics. If we take a look at the riding, for example, of Annapolis, Carmen Kerr, whether he wins or loses tonight, will emerge bruised. He's the Liberal incumbent there, popular in his riding. His opponent there, David Bowlby from the Progressive Conservatives. Late in the campaign, he underwent one of those news release attacks late, accusing him of hurting doctor recruitment efforts, which is a big deal in any part of rural Nova Scotia. That was an attack line that the Progressive Conservatives tried earlier in the year and got zero traction with any of the media in this province. They also produced, the Progressive Conservatives, just to bring this really home and make it a family thing. They released a video of Bowlby with Tim Houston down there by the bus with Carmen's uncle. Greg Kerr, he's a former Progressive Conservative MLA, longtime one in Annapolis, and was a Conservative MP in Ottawa. He was endorsing not his nephew, Carmen Kerr, but David Bowlby. Don't know whether that was necessary, but that gives you a taste of what's been going on in Annapolis. Kerr, on his part, of course, managed to get out a video from the man he replaced, which was Stephen McNeil, speaking in glowing terms of Carmen Kerr. We don't know how that race is going to end tonight, but that gives you a flavor of what's actually been going on in the ground in this race, while Tim Houston has been talking about Team Houston and make it happen and all that stuff. Behind the scenes and at another level, there's just been a constant barrage.
Some sharp elbows.
Yeah, some sharp elbows.
Talking about candidates here tonight, and Kyle Moore is in Sydney Mines with a pretty interesting candidate because of his actions days before the election was called. Let's check in with Kyle now on that.
Yeah, Tom, I'm here with Fred Tilley right now, and as you can hear, the music is playing behind us. Everybody seems relaxed. Fred, how are you feeling right now?
Well, Kyle, you know, it's a combination of emotions, the nervousness, the excitement. At the end of the day, we've done everything we can do, and it's in the hands of the voters. And you know what? The mood here is fantastic, and it's the constituents that give me the energy.
And there's a big crowd here, too.
Yeah, it's really nice to see the support come out for, you know, for our thank you party, and that's what it's all about. This is about having some fun tonight, watching the results together, and then thanking everybody for their contributions to the campaign.
A bit of a twist to this riding because one of your opponents is Danny Laffin, a guy that you know well. It's almost like you guys switched roles here.
Yes, we have. So, you know, obviously I switched from the Liberal Party to the PC Party, and Danny was a long-time PC member that switched to the Liberal Party. So it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's less about party politics, and it's more about the constituents and what can happen in this riding going forward.
So talk a little bit about that decision then. I mean, there's been lots of conversation around you making that decision across the floor. Talk about the decision and what you heard on the doorstep about it.
So the decision for me is quite simple. At the end of the day, there's an opportunity here for Northside Westmount to be at the table where the decisions are made. And, you know, so we can get more done. So Joanne and I in our office have worked tirelessly for the last 3.5 years, and we've helped so many people. The ability to be on the government side, I think, just allows us to help the community that much more, as well as our constituents.
So what kind of conversations did you have with people that voted for you the last time, a Liberal vote? This time around, of course, you're running for the PCs.
Yeah, so of course, some folks were a little upset with that, and others were jubilant that, you know, at the doors I heard, oh my goodness, thank God, now I can vote for you. I was voting for you anyway, but now I can vote for you with a smile on my face because you have switched parties. And for me, it's been about being a constituency MLA. What I heard on the doors mostly was, Fred, we don't care if you're blue, red, green, or whatever color. We vote for you because you've helped us all.
Now, on the western side of the island, Alan McMaster left the PCs. He said he wants to run federally. That opens up a cabinet position if you are elected and if the PCs get in. Is that something that you're interested in?
Certainly, it's absolutely something I'm interested in. I've worked hard, and I'll continue to work hard to prove myself so that maybe I am considered for a role like that. But right now, tonight, it's about Northside Westmount, and it's about winning this seat for the government side so that we can do good things for the constituency.
Well, the wait is a little longer tonight, but we're getting there. Thanks, Fred, for your time.
Thanks so much, Kyle. I appreciate it.
All right, Tom, back to you.
All right, Kyle, thank you for that. And I think we all agree on the panel here that that's the room we'd like to be in tonight so far. It seems to be the most fun with the music playing and the toe tapping and so on. 12 minutes, a little over 12 minutes before we think we get our first results. So hang tight there, folks. We're getting really close, and we're starting to try to unpack the election campaign as it was for you before we get that fire hose of results, which is what we were expecting.
It's going to be coming fast and furious, we're pretty sure.
At the top of the clock. Vernon is with the panel, and they'd like to chew on some of this as well. So Vernon, take it away.
We do plan to chew on it a little bit. Thanks very much, Tom. Now, panelists, you're all political insiders. We've got a sort of weird delay period now we weren't expecting earlier today. Some of you have some really obviously close memories of what it's like to run, what a night like this is like when you're sitting there waiting for the results to come in. And obviously, the amount of work that's gone into getting to this point. And I want to start with you, Kelly, because you have a very vivid recent memory of it.
Well, I remember last time when I was sitting at home waiting for the results to come in, and no, I think it was actually the election before, and the numbers were actually over one column, and so we had one result, and it had me losing, and I knew it was wrong, but it sat on it for 20 minutes while they figured out what the problem was, and so it was a really nerve-wracking time, even though really in the last week you kind of know if you're going to win. You can feel it on the doorsteps. So that was kind of bruising. And I do have one other anecdote. I think it was from election night last year where One of our candidates had been told that she had lost, and I got a phone call saying she's won. She won. It was the final poll. She won, and I called her, and she was on her back deck, having a beverage, overlooking Bedford Basin.
You just gave it away. You just gave away the geography.
and there's a lot of ridings that overlook Bedford Basin. And I said, "You've won. You've won." And so I got to deliver that message, and that was a really nice moment there too.
No, when you and Barbara were talking earlier, I think one of the things you spoke about was the fact that there's this overwhelming tiredness from having such a slog to get to this point. Barbara, talk about that as well.
Well, I don't think that people realize it's like doing 30 days of all-nighters. Like, you're so tired. By this day, you're practically hallucinating. And I remember one election, I was on the leaders' tour, landing in Halifax Airport, and you're so absorbed. And of course, I was working for the NDP, walking past baggage and seeing a person with an orange T-shirt on and thinking to myself, that's a supporter, who is it? And then I thought, no, that's just a person in an orange T-shirt. And to try to transition yourself back. One thing I used to do at the end of every election campaign is I would throw out all the clothes I'd worn on the campaign. It was just like done. I had to re-enter life.
Chris, do you find there's a level of confidence that people just know we're going to win and there's no worry on election night? Or is it that people genuinely, even if they're fairly certain to win, are still nervous?
Oh, there's all kinds of anxiety, and it's funny, in the lead up to this, having the opportunity to do this tonight, did I rewatch 2021, which, you can find on the Google box. So when I had the opportunity to be at the desk with Amy and Tom and Paul last time, and watched it again, and one of the things that we sort of talked about at that point was when the numbers had started to shift, said something, paraphrasing, but said something to the effect of, talking to the Tory War Room and some of my closest lifelong friends, including James Michener, like my brother from another mother, who was the campaign director at the time, doubting his own numbers. These numbers look too good, and we don't believe our algorithms, we don't believe our math anymore. Our system has to be in some state of disarray because it's starting to trend in such a positive direction. That same critical mass of folks are running the campaign this time, and I won't say there's perhaps the doubt in the algorithms narrative this time, but they're continuing to be. It's been so good for so long. The doors are so good. The polling is so good. Where we expect to do really, really well is so good that there's an enhanced anxiety about, frankly, underperforming tonight. It's not expected, but that human emotion is there. Have we done enough? And and to one of the points, I think it was Michael's point a little bit earlier, that the party's really pulled out all the stops in advertising and the door knocking and the teams and the data collection and the rapid response and the critiques of the other guys, and it's been a full an all hands on deck sort of election, not a phone it in kind of election, not taking anything for granted. And that's, there's hope in the Tory War Room that pays off tonight, but ultimately, again, we'll see. It brings off all kinds of memories. I mean, Kelly, of course, has been an MLA for 15 years, and you and Jeff have had how many elections?
14 in total, 13 since we've been together.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I mean, and then we've been in war rooms, and we've been door knockers and sign hammerers and premier advisors and all things in between. And anyway, this brings back a lot of memories too, and sort of the anxiety that folks.
It does.
Yeah, what must be going through.
Also weight loss. Like every election, I lost between 10 and 12 pounds.
You did
knocking on door. I kind of
the other
missed
way.
that this time, right?
No.
You were not on the Daryl Dexter fish and chips tour, I can tell you.
I look at it from the perspective of poor Tom and Amy having been in that chair in Newfoundland and Labrador, that if there's more delays, you end up treading water on live television for hours and hours and hours. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But like what's happened in Mushaboom has delayed these results, but it's probably just really delayed the inevitable for a lot of people, right? Because they're tracking their voter ID, they're knocking on the doors, they have a sense of what's coming in, they're cross-referencing that with the voter turnout that day, so they have some sense of what is going on out there, and we just like the verdict to be read by the jury to let them know how it all worked out. And for, with an election like this one, where a lot of races are pretty much decided, really going into election day, it's those tight, narrow races where the anxiety is really high. I mean, take Zach Churchill, the Liberal leader down in Yarmouth, right, where the fishing issues are so significant down there. It's dumping day for the lobster fishermen for their traps. Are they just going to dump their traps, or are they going to dump the Liberals? Zach Churchill wants to know that as fast as he can, and this delay just adds to the anxiety and tension that's there for the party expected to have a tough night ahead of them.
Well, they don't have many minutes of treading water left, so let's go back to Tom and Amy at the desk.
Yeah, the added anxiety of the delay and weight loss during the campaign. There's a lot of benefits
upsides,
to
right?
campaign. Yeah, 5 minutes or so, a little over 5 minutes before we think we'll get our first results.
It's like New Year's Eve,
It
right?
does,
We're just waiting for the countdown.
Ball drop, Okay, but in the meantime, we were kind of on the campaign chair tour, it seems, because we're going to go down to Yarmouth again. Jean Laroche is standing by with the Liberal campaign chair down there, I believe. Jean?
That's correct, Tom. I'm with Heather Chesson, who is the campaign co-chair of the entire provincial campaign. And we were talking a lot, Heather, about the kind of anticipation, the butterflies as you wait for the results. How are you feeling?
I feel fine. I feel very good about our campaign. I feel very good about the job the leader has done. I'm proud of our platform, of our candidates. They've all worked so hard, and 40% of our candidates are women. We feel very good about what we've done.
And this is campaign number what for you?
Well, if I count my federal and provincial campaigns, this is number 25, a bit of an anniversary. But I've also done some municipal campaigns, so north of 30, I guess.
And so does this one feel any different than the others?
I feel better about this one in many, many, many ways, actually. The leader has been doing this, Zach has been doing this for all the right reasons. He's a smart, thoughtful, energetic guy, uncynical, unlike many politicians. So it's been a real pleasure doing this with him and with our team. We've had a small team, but a mighty team. And as I've said, we're really proud of what we've done.
Talked to one of your candidates, Laura Lee Murphy, just a few moments ago, and I asked her this question. I'm going to ask you because you're kind of got a foot in both the federal and provincial camps. Has the federal party been a drag on this particular campaign?
Well, I think Tim Houston wanted to make it a drag on this campaign. Tim Houston, wants to talk about Justin Trudeau, and it boggles my mind. But often in politics, people like to have an enemy, and I guess Tim Houston has chosen Justin Trudeau.
And what was the goal of this campaign for you and the team?
Well, the goal is always to win some seats, to hang on to our wonderful MLAs that we have, but also to let people know that we've heard them, that we know the issues, and we've got some solutions to those problems for them.
And so, in your mind, has that resonated enough? Because we see the polls, and the Liberals are always kind of mired in second or third.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story about the platform. And we love to talk about the platform, as you know, but I have a brother-in-law who has only voted Conservative provincially and federally his whole life. And he called me last week to say that he's voted Liberal because he did look at the three platforms. I was quite shocked. So I'm hoping many other Nova Scotians have done the same.
All right, thank you very much. That is Heather Chesson. She is the campaign co-chair for the provincial campaign, the Liberal campaign. Back to you, Tom.
All right, Jean, thank you for that. Jean Laroche in Yarmouth tonight. We are in downtown Halifax in beautiful Province House. And it's pretty swanky, to say the least. We are very comfortable here, and the folks have been very good to us, haven't they?
Well, you know what? So much history in this building and more history being made tonight. So it's a really special place to be, and we really want to thank everybody here at Province House for letting CBC crash the joint, right?
Yeah, it looks great, and they've been just very, very wonderful to have us. I'm sure, Mike, you know this well as anyone. They'd love to have some tours if people would come down here if they would want to, or very interested in this property.
A lot of people don't realize it, but when this place is open during the day, it is the people's house, and the people are more than welcome to come in here. My personal favorite room in the building is the library, and it's well worth a stop in to check the place out.
Okay, and there might be a portrait of Paul Withers someplace in a quiet corner of the building. You never know. All right, let's get down to the NDP headquarters on the Halifax waterfront now. Taryn is standing by with an NDP candidate.
That's right, Tom. I'm here with Susie Hansen. She is the incumbent for Halifax Needham. And Susie, we've been talking a lot tonight about the strategy for the NDP overall, but I wonder what the strategy has been for you as an individual candidate in this election.
I think our strategy was just to talk to as many people as possible and really connect with folks in community. That's what has been working. That's what people want to see and hear. They want folks to actually really have conversations about what's really going on in Nova Scotia.
And what were you hearing most on the doorstep?
A lot of the times it was about housing and affordability, similar to the priorities that we have in our platform. And I think it's telling to how Nova Scotians truly feel about what we've seen with past governments. So, you know, we were just telling them, get out and vote for the person that matters the most, which is our party.
How are you feeling after 30 days of campaigning?
I'm actually really high energy right now. This is an exciting time, but I will say that I couldn't have done this without my team, my community, the people around me, which kept me motivated to do this work. So I'm feeling great, and I know that this is going to be wonderful for them and our community.
This is your second election, second campaign. How does this one compare to 2021?
Well, I mean, they were both unexpected. What we're finding, this one shouldn't have been unexpected, but something that was different was that, you know, the timing, right? Like, we just had no idea what was going to happen, and we just had to go with what we had to work with and adapted as we went along. And it went really, really well. Like, we had a wonderful uptick, and people were very responsive.
Thank you so much for chatting with us tonight. Tom, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Taryn, thank you very much for that. Well, we, as we said earlier, are in historic Province House in downtown Halifax on election night. We are at the top of the clock now. The clock that was on the screen has disappeared, which is an indication that we do expect the results to be coming in very quickly, and lots of them in a rush here shortly.
They're coming. Joe Howe looking over our shoulder, keeping a good eye on things. And Mike, this is what the parties are waiting for, how things break, how things go tonight. Talk to me a bit about that.
Well, I think we've heard from the guests with our folks out in the field, but let's just state the obvious here. For the PCs, the question is, how big will that number be? They surely are expecting their majority to grow. Can they get up to 37, which would give them a supermajority in the House? Can they get over 40 and approach Buchanan's record? For the Liberals, it's all about, can we hang on to what we've got? Or are we risking slipping into third place? We already see numbers coming up at the bottom of the screen, 3 for the PCs, 5
All right,
for the
these are
PCs.
first results, exactly, Mike. 28 seats for the majority. The PCs on the board now with 5 leading and elected, 1 Liberal, 1 NDP. 46 seats to come.
Jumped up to 7 already for the
PCs.
PCs.
Starting to come in quickly now.
They are coming
as
fast.
we expected. To remind folks, these are the advanced ballots that have been counted, and the button was hit and they were sent, and ballots being counted tonight from today's election day as well.
PCs up 9, Liberals 1, NDP 1. So
early on, Paul,
everybody on the board except the independents.
Exactly, early on, going the PC way, at least here.
That's right. This is what the Progressive Conservatives expect to unfold. Just a reminder to our viewers tonight, there's David Bowlby. We were talking about Annapolis, about a quarter of the polls in with Bowlby, who is the farm manager for Agriculture Canada's research station in Kentville, up by 195 votes. This was a seat that got some attention from the Progressive Conservatives. They wanted to take it away from Carmen Kerr. Bowlby is up by 195.
12 of 46 polls according there, yeah.
This is, the Progressive Conservatives dominate mainland Nova Scotia. This is the kind of seat that they will be expecting to hold on to. Michelle Thompson, the Minister of Health, 400-vote lead. Again, with about a quarter of the votes in, this is heading in the right direction for her and for the Progressive Conservatives. We heard from Jean that Argyll is the safest PC seat. Colton LeBlanc last time received 82% of the vote in Argyll in 2021. He's looking awfully strong tonight, that's for sure. And Cape Breton, Whitney Pier, one of the ones that we were watching, Kendra Coombs was involved in one of the closer elections last time. 100-vote lead, again, with about a quarter of the polls in, against Darren O'Quinn, who is the candidate for the Progressive Conservatives, who had just won a seat on the Cape Breton Regional Municipal Council when he decided to maybe he'd like to leave that behind.
Jumping up to 26 now, the PCs on the board, leading and elected.
Interesting situation here. Liberals have great hopes for Braden Clark. They're hoping that he's one of a safe seat in those suburban Halifax ridings. But with 3 of 48 polls reporting, he's only got 140. He's got 148 votes. That's a 23 vote lead over the Progressive Conservative.
The scoreboard there, Paul. The PC's up to 30, now into majority, well over that line they need to be for a majority government in Nova Scotia. 8 for the NDP, 1 for the Liberals, 1 independent with 15 seats to report.
Maybe we should explain to the viewers, you're seeing something on the bottom right-hand screen. Every 6 minutes or so, you will see your riding sort of click through. If you keep your eye on the bottom right-hand of your screen, we will cycle through all of the 55 ridings throughout the evening. So every 6 minutes, you should see your riding pop up.
And for all of you on radio, we'll try and keep you abreast of the numbers as well. 30 seats now for the PCs, 8 for the NDP, 1 for the Liberal, 1 independent, leading and elected. 15 seats still to come in the province so far.
Some huge numbers coming on the board for the PCs. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture right now. We can look at the vote share in this province.
Huge number.
60%.
Wow. That is a big one.
That is a major number. Considering the last election, the PCs got 38.4% to form a majority. This is huge territory, Mike.
It's massive territory, and it's reflected in that seat count down at the bottom. Right now, 30 for the PCs, but I got to draw your attention to the other two numbers. 19.1% vote share for the Liberals, 18.9% vote share for the NDP. But look how much more efficient their vote is. With 18.9% of the vote, the NDP currently are leading in 8 seats. The Liberals have 19.1% of the vote, but they're leading only in 1.
It's the efficiency of the vote, right? It's not necessarily how many votes you get, but how many seats you get.
That's right.
And we can see the PCs up 7 from last vote, NDP up 3. Another flip side of the coin there, the Liberals down 10. So this is shaping up to be a very, very bad trend for them this evening.
Certainly not where they want to be. In fairness, there are still 15 seats to come, so we're not sure, how that might change things. But right now, we're headed towards worst case scenario right now for the Liberals. If they're down to 1 seat, they risk being an unrecognized party in the legislature.
And we've got 45,000 votes in the system right now. So it's a start of what could be a big, big night for the Tories.
Well, it already is looking that way. There they are sitting steadily above the 28-seat mark for a majority. They've got 31 right now, which is what they had, of course, after the last election. They're certainly hoping that number will come up. It's already gone up to 33.
And 37, they get super majority.
37 gives you super majority. And quickly, for folks who don't know, who aren't political nerds, 37 seats is 2/3 of the seats in the legislature. And if you have 2/3 of the seats, you can change the rules of the House without the cooperation of the opposition. And that means things like structure of committees, whether or not certain committees exist, who's on them, the hours the House sits, and perhaps most importantly, the mechanisms that the opposition uses to limit debate and stretch it out can be halted.
Mike, I have to interrupt you there now because the CBC Decision Desk is about to make a projection for who will form a majority government here in Nova Scotia. And there you have it. It will be a progressive conservative majority government. Tim Houston returning to this building, Province House, Paul, as Premier once again.
Well, I guess we can safely say that the early election call worked. He was able to take advantage of discontent with Justin Trudeau, caught the other parties off guard. But I think you have to say it's not going to get much better than this for the Progressive Conservatives.
Inside election night headquarters there, the PCs, and people are watching the TVs and enjoying what they're seeing and hearing.
You know, governments in Nova Scotia are usually rewarded with a second term, but this is shaping up to be a really big win for a second term. And certainly it would be a vindication for Tim Houston as a leader. It would be a vindication for the government that he ran. He was obviously the most popular leader in this election. That was what polling told us throughout, that in fact, he was best seen, there they are, they're starting to clap through, and so they should. He was seen as best able to deal with the issues that voters really cared about. We heard David Cochrane refer to that: healthcare, affordability, lowering taxes. They were a second, close second to the.
They're celebrating.
And so they should. Close second to the NDP on improving housing. But this is the PC party's night. Just 37 seats to 7 for the NDP.
And they are doing it with style for sure. The PCs, for those of you watching the board, 37 for the PC, leading and elected, 7 NDP, 3 Liberal, 1 Independent, 7 seats still to report in Nova Scotia. But boy, we're getting a good picture of what's happening here in the province.
Exactly. When we step back again, you know, last time we looked at the share of the vote, it was 60% for the PCs. If we can pull up that again, they're sitting at 36 seats right now. 8 for the NDP, 3 for the Liberals, and 1 Independent. Down a tiny bit from the last time we showed this board, but still a massive number, 57.8%. That's the share of the vote for the PCs. And as we talked about earlier, 21.9% for the Liberals, but it's not reflected in the actual seats that they're leading in right now.
No, and this is at least partially a reflection of the fact that the Liberals very much had to run a province-wide campaign tip to tail. Zach Churchill was from Yarmouth to Cape Breton back, because that's what you had to do. The NDP, as a more metro-centric party, at least for now, going into this election, were concentrated primarily on metro seats. They were up to Cape Breton a little bit, down through the valley a little bit. But let's state the obvious here, that the core strength of that party is in HRM. And so that lower percentage share is still translating into more seats.
Yeah, look at that. Up 18.7 for the PCs from the last vote. That's huge. And the Liberals down 14.6. The NDP down a little bit too. So
well, that really is something worth noting, right? The Liberal vote is cratering, really, but the NDP right now is leading in 2 seats more than they finished the last election with, and yet they have a lower vote share than what they had after the last election.
So it's all where the votes land.
Indeed it is.
Yeah, things going the PC way tonight for sure. Let's get to our reporter who was with the PCs tonight. Shayna Luck has the latest from the election night headquarters there in Pictou County. Shayna.
Tom, I don't even know if you can hear me at this point because the music is blasting. There's a whole lot of cheering going on, and people are absolutely just glorying in this moment. I saw a lot of really ecstatic hugging earlier, and so there's this real sense, I think, of victory here. And there's the sense, you know, that the hard work of the campaign has paid off. People have talked to us tonight about the work that they've done over the course of the last month. And so really, can you hear that? It's quite the party, and lots of people tuning into all of the broadcasts and just soaking up this moment right now. Tom?
Okay.
All right, Shayna, thanks so much. Doing her best to hear as she can there with all that music playing in the background, the party happening in real time on television there tonight. Shayna, part of it. Okay, thanks so much for that, Shayna. The numbers on the board tell a big part of the story for sure. PCs for the lead of 36 leading and elected. Now it's 37. NDP with 7. The Liberals with 3. 1 Independent. But in the Liberal territory there, we are hearing that Zach Churchill is losing his seat, in fact. So that is just such a troubling sign for the Liberals tonight. Let's get over to Paul Withers now, who has more on what's happening there in the parties.
Yeah, it's not going well for the Progressive Conservatives, but if it's not going well for the Liberals, it's certainly going great for the Progressive Conservatives. Let's take a look at our first elect tonight. This is the first one that we called Kim Masland in Queens. Not a surprise here. She was expected to do well. She's up by 1,300 votes with 2/3 of the votes in here. Masland expected to be driving up, like a lot of these rural Nova Scotia seats, the vote share that the Progressive Conservatives are enjoying right now. A big, massive wins. Let's take a look at where they're winning in Halifax. Not an election yet. This is an interesting riding. Just a 15-vote lead for Adagoki, Fideri, and Clayton Park West. Interesting, the Liberal is at 178 here at the bottom, but it's still, this is not a done deal. Just a 15-vote lead with the Conservative, the Progressive Conservative ahead in what was a Liberal riding. Rick Burns with a more comfortable lead in Hammonds Plains, Lucasville. Ben Jessom came in with the Stephen McNeil government in 2013 and has beat off every challenger since then. Rick Burns is a guy who runs the White Hills Ratepayers Association. That's a big subdivision in that riding, a strong local candidate. This would tell you that the PC strength is moving right into suburban Halifax, which is what they want and what the Liberals did not want to see happen tonight. Tom?
All right, Paul, thanks so much. Yeah, things ticking up for the PCs. They're now at 37. That's in the supermajority territory that Mike was talking about earlier. And we know that there are 10 seats where there's less than 100 votes separating them.
Too close to call right now, so there are some real horse races still going on tonight. So there's going to be a lot of storylines to talk about.
Yeah, 7 seats to report yet in the province of Nova Scotia. But for you folks watching and for our radio audience, 37 PC, 7 NDP, 3 Liberal, and 1 Independent. All right, let's get you over to our election night panel again, and Vernon Ramazar. Vernon.
Thank you very much, Tom. Well, panelists, what are we seeing unfolding in front of us here? I don't know who to start with. Chris, maybe you.
Yeah, boy, oh boy. I would, first off, it's early. Now, these numbers have come in, of course, in a flood, and we're seeing 48 of 55 seats reporting so far. Those seats are not all final. You know, only 17 have been declared, and even then, they've been declared quite early in the vote count in terms of the polls that have been counted. Just the pluralities are so consequential that the CBC decision desk would have made those calls early. That said, 56.9% of the popular vote was outside of the most optimistic margin of the PC war room. 56.8% would be a historic high, higher than the highest ever PC total, which Robert Stanfield got in 1963. It would still surprise, which was 56.3%. It would still surprise me if it stayed at that level, but the fact that we're seeing these early counts at that level would certainly lead to believe that those numbers will be consequentially high, early Buchanan era high, and the seat counts will likely follow. So it's going to be, obviously, it's a very exciting night. You know, great shock. I'm sure the party's in full swing in Pictou, sorry to not be there, gang. But nonetheless, it's trending towards a very, very big night and a very big validation of the Tim Houston plan and Nova Scotian support for it.
And not so much a great night for the Liberals, Kelly?
Well, there's a number of seats where I think we would expect to do well, where we're not seeing results yet.
Including Yarmouth. I mean, that's a bit surprising at this point. Things may change.
Well, in Yarmouth, there are some results in, but it's not going in our favor so far. Again, not a whole lot of results reporting so far. So there are still early in the night, as Chris said, and so things can change there. But there are a number of races where things are really quite close, and I think that's important to note that. I think it was Yogi Berra who said it ain't over till it's over, and as my friend who was having the beverage on her back deck found out, you want to wait till all the votes are counted, so we still have hope.
And Barbara, I mean, at this point, we're looking at 9 NDP. That's a bit of an increase. That must be at least something that's welcomed by the party.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's not just an increase. It's now moving from third party to official opposition, which is hugely important. That will give them the resources to actually have a voice to hold the government to account. But, you know, it's not over. Yes, it is. You know, this is what we're looking at is actually a bit of history. This is quite a phenomenal achievement that I think is Tim Houston's personal achievement.
Yeah, so on that now, Tim Houston has now done 2 interesting things in 2 consecutive elections. He flipped government in a COVID-era election in 2021. I know it was Ian Rankin, not Stephen McNeil, but he still flipped the chamber that is directly above us from red to blue. And now it looks like there's still some 6 seats to come, but this trend holds. He will have increased the size of his government in a post-COVID era when you've got inflation, you've got interest rates, you've got cost of living, all issues stacking up that favor opposition parties. Here is Tim Houston, who broke the promise of Bill 1 to call it early election, facing all of those headwinds, winning and likely increasing his standing inside the legislature here. He said he wanted to stand up for Nova Scotia with Ottawa. Premier Houston, you've got a 5 p.m. Eastern Time conference call with the Prime Minister and the other premiers tomorrow because Donald Trump is threatening to put tariffs on every aspect of the Canadian economy. So he's going to be a busy guy right from the get-go.
Very quickly, Chris, you had something you want to say?
I do. I can report from the Tory War Room that as of 3 minutes ago, Zach Churchill called Premier Houston and conceded the election, wishing him well and congratulating him on a good campaign and job well done, which, of course, that message was relayed in kind back to Zach for running a very clean campaign and making a very good effort. But the first concession call from the leader of the Liberal Party, the leader of the official opposition, Zach Churchill, has happened to the Premier.
That's certainly an interesting bit of news.
Plus, it's fun to say we've got breaking news.
It's always fun to say that.
Great. That's great.
Okay, back to our
Tom shouldn't
desk
get to do that
now
all the time, Vern.
for a latest update.
All right, Vern, thank you very much for that. Yeah, interesting tidbit there, the call from Mr. Churchill conceding.
Clearly, the writing is on the wall.
Exactly, it's on the wall. But this is shaping up to be kind of the nightmare experience that the Liberals were worried about, isn't it?
Bottoming out.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, right now, Mr. Churchill is running in second place to the PC challenger, Nick Hilton. Interesting little roundabout connection there in politics. Zach Churchill was first elected in 2010 in a by-election to replace former PC MLA Richard Hurlburt. He had to step down amidst the MLA expense scandal. Nick Hilton's campaign is being partially run by Richard Hurlburt. This go around, Richard has been helping Nick. He's been appearing with him at debates and as he goes around town to various events. So a bit of a perhaps full circle moment there, I guess.
And we've got some races. We've got 78,000 votes in the system right now, and we've got some that are just too close to call, under 100 votes. Have a look at this. And Bedford South is a tie.
It's a dead tie. That's Braden Clark's district that he's hoping to hang on to. That's a district that the Liberals had said to me, if we lose Braden Clark, we may be down to one seat.
Wow.
And so, as we're seeing, that could play out. We see
Cole Harbour, just one vote in the difference.
Just one vote. That's one of those seats where the Liberal incumbent did not reoffer, and both of the other parties were feeling bullish.
Clayton Park West, we've got 15 votes separating the PC and NDP candidate there.
That's right. And then you go down that list, Sackville, Cobequid, the NDP leading the PC by 24. Sydney, member 2, that's Derek Momberket, is leading his PC challenger by 28. In Halifax, Armdale, the NDP is leading the PCs by 33. And in Annapolis, we heard Paul talking about that district earlier, the PCs are leading the Liberals by 46 votes. And I think what's really interesting to point out here is when you go down that list of second place, only one of those second places is the Liberals. And so that means that except for those two seats...
The NDP is also in Clayton Park West is in second place as well.
That's right. But when you go down that list, other than the two seats that the Liberals are in first, it means the other two parties are making further gains.
And when we look at Bedford South and Cole Harbour with tied or one vote, it really does emphasize the point of every vote matters, why they're getting people out to vote as they can, trying to encourage people to find their voting place and make sure their voices are heard.
It also emphasizes why Tim Houston perhaps wanted to go early and the advantage that comes with it, because in that area, for anyone who has been driving along the Bedford Highway, pretty well as soon as the election was called, there were a lot of Tim Houston billboards all along the Bedford Highway, a lot of Tim Houston bus shelter ads along the Bedford Highway, and clearly that strategy is paying off for them.
They knew where to target for sure.
All right, yeah, some of those too close to call for sure, but Paul, you have one that's definitely not too close to call at this point.
That's right. That is the NDP leader herself. That is Claudia Chender. She has been elected. This is a significant moment for her.
Sure is.
As the concession call from Zach Churchill to Tim Houston was a milestone, this is a milestone for Claudia Chender. On a much happier note for the New Democrats tonight, 600 vote lead over the Progressive Conservative in Dartmouth South. This is job one for her. Job two seems to be underway here, and that is hopscotching past the Liberals into second place. The other elect, by the way, for the New Democrats tonight is their old Dartmouth sparring partner and buddy, Susan LeBlanc in Dartmouth North. She's also been elected. So those are the two NDP that we have elected. The PCs, though, as you would expect with this kind of night, they've got 23 people elected, and they're winning by huge margins in a lot of those ridings in rural Nova Scotia that you'd expect. Marco McLeod in Pictou West is just blowing his opponents away up there.
Which he did in the by-election recently as well, so no slippage there for him.
No.
All right, 36 for the PC, 9 for the NDP, 3 Liberal, and the 1 independent seat, presumably in Cumberland North. Paul will be checking on that, of course. But yeah, they're shaping up as a real PC night tonight, and Claudia Chender, as you say, elected there. We're still waiting for results, by the way, from Mr. Houston's riding, so as soon as we get some of those, we'll have those for you as well. But right now,
6 seats to come.
6 seats to still come in Nova Scotia, that's right. So we'll wait for the details to filter in on those. But in the meantime, let's get over to our political panel again, and Vernon Ramazar.
Thank you very much, Tom. And our source for breaking news here on the panel, Chris, has a new development for us.
A second call has happened, and the leader of the NDP, Claudia Gender, who is, who the decision desk noted, has just been elected. And frankly, she's been elected with, I think, almost 70% of the vote so far reporting in Dartmouth South. So excellent job, clearly. Has just called the Premier as well and conceded. And obviously, they congratulated each other again on good campaigns. But now both opposition leaders have spoken with the Premier and wished him well on his success tonight. So lots of results still to come in. And as we're watching the results, so I can just expand just a little bit more, what we're seeing tonight is very clearly a highly efficient vote for the NDP. Right now, with, again, a projected or a leading and elected seat count of about 9, they're doing so with a vote percentage, total vote percentage, roughly 2% behind that of the Liberals in terms of the popular vote. With just over 20% to just under 22% for the Liberals. The Liberals only 3 seats. So the vote efficiency is I mean, you were expecting this, when we were talking earlier.
Yeah. Can we just explain that? Because for the average layperson, they've been hearing it all evening, but what does it exactly mean, vote efficiency?
That. Oh, okay. So let's say, in the sake of the PC war room, the fear was that, okay, the polls are saying the party could end up anywhere from the mid-40s to 50%. And that's excellent. But the seat count could be anywhere from, say, 34, 35, 36, up to close to 50 in principle, if the vote is efficient or inefficient. If the party's just racking up huge pluralities, like Colton LeBlanc's in Argyll, where he's going to win 82 or 83% of the vote, lovely if you're a supporter of Colton's in Argyll, but those votes aren't, per se, balanced all across the province. In the case of the New Democrats, you're seeing, I think, of highly concentrated, which also speaks, frankly, to the quality of their campaign, the quality of the knowledge of their data, so that they know where their supporters are, they know where they were strong, they invested their time and their money in those ridings, and they're getting, well, at least as of right now, tracking to have 9 of them across the finish line with less votes than the Liberals.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. Let's go back to the main desk for some updates.
All right, Vern, thanks very much for that. We're going to get to some more riding results, but as we head that way, PC's 36 on the board, leading and elected, now projected to have the PC majority government. The NDP with 9, the Liberals with 3, the Independent with 1, 6 seats still to come. And Paul, let's have a look at some of the riding results to see how this is playing out across the province.
Well, Tom, you just mentioned the Independent. That's one that everyone is interested in. This is Cumberland North, where Elizabeth Smith McCrossan is the incumbent in this riding. She's got a 320 vote lead with about a third of the polls in over the Progressive Conservative Bill Dow, the trucking and excavating company, a businessman in Amherst. The Progressive Conservatives had their eye on this seat. They put $2 million worth of spending into shoring up the Chignecto Isthmus before the campaign started, a sign that maybe Dow could deliver that sort of thing. McCrossan is trying to become the first independent in Nova Scotia history to win back-to-back elections. She's not there yet, but she's got a 320 vote lead at this stage of the election, with a little over a third of the polls reporting she's heading in the right direction. This is an elect. This is Brad McGowan in Cole Harbour, Dartmouth, taking a seat that was Liberal but had no Liberal incumbent in it. He has an 850 vote lead over the New Democrat here, with the Liberal in third place tonight. The decision desk projects him as the winner tonight. Another win for the Progressive Conservatives. And there you go. Fred Tilley, whose defection was really an attempt by Tim Houston to wound the Liberals heading into the election. That was a job accomplished. He's won handily tonight in Northside Westmount, returning it to the Tory fold with nearly 1,000 vote lead, with more than half the ridings reported. Here we go. We're going to keep an eye on Hammonds Plains, Lucasville. This is one with a Liberal incumbent in it, trailing now by 212 votes to the Progressive Conservative, Rick Burns. This is one where the Liberals were hoping if they could hang on in suburban Halifax, this is the kind of riding that they would hang on. But again, a sign that the Progressive Conservatives are making real inroads here. And in King South, what was many saw as a sort of a bellwether riding of its own, Julie Van Exen up by 240 votes, with again about a third of the polls in, over Ramona Jennings of the New Democrats, trying to make a comeback. She represented the riding in the Darrell Dexter government from 2009 to 2013 before she was bumped off by the Liberals. The Progressive Conservatives have turned to a software business operator there. She's got a 240 vote lead, as I say, with about a third of the votes in. So what we're seeing is the Progressive Conservatives taking away incumbent seats, or on the way to doing that.
Yeah, a big night for the PCs right across the province. 93,000 votes now in the system, so still plenty of votes still to come, but everything going the PC way tonight. The NDP looking pretty well, pretty comfortable there with 10 as well. But the Liberal story, that has got to be a shocker or disappointment for them tonight.
Well, at 3 right now, that is lower than the previous low water mark in 1963 when the Liberals ended up with 4 seats. And that was, of course, when they were overtaken by the Stanfield PCs. But let's have a look at how the Liberals have done right across the province. Let's have a summary. A lot of negatives.
Well, it's nothing but negatives. It's double-digit percentages of vote loss clear across the province. And you've got a range there of down 10.1 points in Central Nova, all the way to a high of almost 18% down in Fundy North East. And, you know, perhaps one that's most interesting to look at, Southwest Nova Scotia, because that's down where Zach Churchill, of course, is located in Yarmouth. They're down 13.6 points down there.
And not just the party. He's having a rough night as well.
He's having a rough night right now. He's still running in second place. Last count has him trailing Nick Hilton by a little more than 250 votes. 210 votes rather, and so he's in for quite a fight tonight. Putting aside the future of the party, Zach Churchill is in for a fight for his own seat this evening.
And they need 2 seats to maintain party status. So
2 seats to be a recognized party in the legislature. You have to have run candidates in 75% of the districts. You've got to pull in 10% of the popular vote. They tick those 2 boxes, and you need to have 2 elected members. So they're flirting with that at the moment, but right now they're above that threshold.
Yeah, the collapse of the Liberal vote, a big story tonight. Let's get down to Jean Laroche, who's with the Liberals at their election night headquarters, and he has the official agent for Zach Churchill with him. Jean.
That is correct. This is David Salos. And David, I wonder, did you see this kind of race coming here in Yarmouth?
Well, we figured it might be close. Zach has worked hard in this community and served it well. But we also know that the Premier has done a number of visits during the campaign and has put a lot of support behind the PC candidate here. Zach in this campaign had to be all over the province, where he couldn't be in his own community as much. So we're a little disappointed in the results, for sure. But you know, this is a democracy, and we got to live with those results.
Did you think it would be this tight, or did you think you had a little more wiggle room?
As things started to evolve, we thought that it could be quite close, and the candidate they have, Nick Hilton, is a popular member of the community. Has served as a councillor. He's just been elected in his second term, so Nick is well known in the community as well. And then with the additional support that the party put behind him, I'm thinking that has given him that buoyancy that he's needed here.
It seemed to me that the PCs were gunning for this seat and really wanted Zach Churchill gone.
There's no question about that. I think Zach has held the Premier to account as rigorously as he could have. And there's no doubt in my mind the Premier certainly wanted Zach out of that seat.
Now, you've been his official agent since 2013. I imagine you've formed a friendship. How are you feeling?
Oh, well, I'm certainly disappointed for Zach. I mean, Zach is like one of my own kids in a way. I've known him since he was a young man. He attended the school where I was the school principal, and I watched him grow as a leader, not only in student affairs, but also in community affairs, and then, of course, as a party leader in the province. So he's a remarkable young man.
And what do you think his future is, given the numbers we're seeing tonight?
Zach's a creative young person, and he's a very strong person, ethically and morally. I'm sure Zach is going to find some bright things in the future.
Not leading the party, though. Maybe?
It's hard to say. I'm going to leave that one open.
All right, that is David Salos, who is the official agent and has been for almost a decade for Liberal leader Zach Churchill, who, as you know, is in a dogfight for his own seat right now. Tom.
All right, Jean, thanks very much for that. Jean is in Yarmouth with the Liberals tonight. We have some news regarding the independent that is on the board there, the number one. Paul, what do you have there?
Well, it's been settled. The CBC election desk projects that Elizabeth Smith McCrossan will, in fact, return to the Nova Scotia legislature as an independent from Cumberland North, defeating Bill Dow from the Progressive Conservatives. She will be a burr in the saddle of Tim Houston some more. She was bounced out of the Progressive Conservative caucus by Tim Houston before the last election. She was a sitting MLA. She won last time. She has won again, and she becomes only the second independent elected in back-to-back elections in Nova Scotia. So a first here tonight for Elizabeth Smith McCrossan, vindicated and obviously got something working for her up in the Amherst area.
It does appear to be that way. 38 PCs leading and elected, 10 NDP, 2 Liberals, and she is the sole independent on the board there elected. These are the results from Pictou East that we've been waiting for, and this is Mr. Houston's riding, of course.
Right. We are not electing him yet. We have not seen enough votes to do that, but it would be super surprising if Tim Houston did not roll home with this tonight. One of his colleagues has already been elected in the other part of Pictou. That's Marco McLeod. Houston, this will be just another stop on the road to a massive win.
Is he smiling there because he can see the 38 on the board, you think? Because that's also a huge number for the PCs tonight.
It certainly is. It's been a great night for the Progressive Conservatives. They are celebrating as they should. We're also seeing the NDP doing a little celebrating. Taryn mentioned off the top of the broadcast that their goal was to increase their vote count, increase their seat count. They are on the way. They have only elected 2, but they are looking not so bad. Let's look at the other elect. We talked about Claudia Chender. Let's take a look at the riding of Dartmouth North. This is Susan LeBlanc winning her 3rd election with a 910 vote lead over Karina Sanford, the Liberal Pam Cooley. This was a rematch. Cooley ran against her last time. Susan LeBlanc, a trusted lieutenant of Claudia Chender. I think we can safely say that. She's safely elected tonight in the riding of Dartmouth North. Let's take a look at a couple where they're leading. This is Lena Hamid, who is up by 150 votes, with the Liberal trailing the Liberal incumbent, one of the Liberals who was actually running in the Halifax suburban ridings. Nicole Mosier, the Progressive Conservative, putting up a very strong show there. But Ms. Hamid up by 150 votes. She's got 825, with more than half of the polls reporting. We talked at the outset of our broadcast about Sackville-Cobequid. This is the one that the New Democrats had their eye on. Paul Wozni, the former president of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union, with 1,099 votes, with 2/3 of the votes in or better than that. But he's not running away with it. It's just a 52-vote lead for Wozni over the Progressive Conservative Paul Russell, who has 1,047 votes, with 36 of 43 polls reporting, Tom. So we'll be watching this one. This is one of those under 100 votes that we'll be watching.
And I could just add to this, Paul, that the CBC is now projecting the election of Tim Houston as well.
There we go.
And there you go, the check mark, which will make him smile even more, even though there wasn't really much doubt about it tonight. But there you go, Tim Houston elected and coming back to Province House as Premier indeed.
Well, that is a significant event. You know, whenever they win, and whenever a Premier wins, he is now safely home. He is just ticking off all of the boxes that they wanted to.
Sure.
And in Pictou East, it started with Tim Houston getting elected, and that's been well and truly taken care of.
It's going all right for him right now as well. Let's check out the map. It's always interesting when we get to a point like this tonight to have a look at the map and see where things are going. We talked about blue at the beginning of the night and the map from last election, but wow, that is a sea of blue right there tonight.
Yeah, it definitely has a certain hue to it, doesn't it?
Well, it also illustrates why Tim Houston kept going from tip to tail over and over. And in fact, the weekend before the election, this past weekend, one of the stops he went to was Yarmouth.
Yeah.
And it's pretty unusual that a party leader would go to another leader's seat that close to election day unless they're seeing something that gives them cause for optimism. And, you know, it's difficult to argue with that amount of optimism when you look at that map right now.
Well, he talks about wanting a strong mandate. Well, if you've got blue from stem to stern, that certainly gives you a lot more ammunition.
You know, Tim Houston is fond of pulling the Uncle Ben quote from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And tonight, he very clearly has great power. And now the question remains, how is he going to use it? How is he going to action that power? And, you know, I guess we'll see as the days and weeks come on.
Can he spin a web?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen him do that. But I do know that this is the kind of thing that'll have him jumping for joy at a minimum.
Yep.
All right, well, he can win elections, so that's for sure. Let's get to the PC headquarters, where Shayna Luck is standing by, where they are celebrating. I think she can hear us better now with the headphones and everything on. Shayna, who do you have with us?
Tom, I'm here with Lisa Manninger, the Director of Communications for the PC campaign, and also worked under Rodney McDonald and John Hamm, I understand.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so how are you feeling tonight?
I'm so excited. It's a real historic night, and I'm just so happy that we had a great campaign and how everything came together. I'm really excited.
And looking at the results right now, you know, everyone in this room is just feeling so good. But before the results came, was there any part of you that was a bit nervous?
Not really. I mean, people on the doors were so receptive to our message. And also, you know, they had a term to see that we have a leader who won't take no for an answer, who knocks down barriers to get things done. They see that our plan is working, and they were receptive to our message to let that plan keep going.
And can you tell me a little bit about, you know, going into this election? What was the strategy? What were the conversations around that?
Building on our plan. We believe in what we've been doing for the last almost 4 years. And just switching, you know, in 2021, we were laser focused on healthcare. Now things have changed. So now we've, you know, changed our strategy to address things that matter to people right now, like affordability and housing and healthcare.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Tom, Lisa Manninger, the Director of Communications for the PC campaign. We're here in Pictou County tonight for you.
Smiles all around in Pictou County tonight. Okay, Shayna, thank you so much for that. Worth mentioning at this point, I know that had been delayed, and we know that there was advanced polls in this province, and we thought that would mean a flood of votes coming into the system right away. Interesting to note, there's only 18 of 118 advanced polls reporting so far. So what you're seeing here on the board is not I mean, there's a lot of big numbers here, but we thought we would see a lot more of the advanced polls a lot quicker.
Only 9 ridings have advanced polls reporting. So that's really something when we were talking about the electronic version and things coming in fast and furious, not the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
so,
you know, just a quick note here, Brett Ruskin is on to Elections Nova Scotia to find out what's going on. We're looking forward to hearing from Brett on that. You know, we just saw the map. That was up, and you noticed there was a few places that were just sort of white. Well, we are still waiting to hear from 4 ridings, and those ridings are Sackville-Uniacke. That is a
3 to come now, it says.
3 to come now. They were Glace Bay Dominion, Clare, and Bedford South. So sorry, Bedford. We're waiting, Bedford Basin, I beg your pardon. So we're still waiting to hear from those ridings, and there they are.
And PC's ticking up again, now down to up to 39. And so, yeah, as those ridings are coming in, things continue to look very rosy for the PCs at this point.
And very bleak for the Liberals.
Very bleak for the Liberals and the NDP there with the double digits and holding.
Well, and the interesting thing, too, if we look at the 3 seats that are still yet to come, Sackville-Uniacke, which coming into this, the PCs held, but as Paul mentioned earlier, the NDP hoped for a pickup there. Glace Bay, which the PCs hold going into this election. And at the moment, I think, you know, my understanding was they were feeling good about retaining that seat. And then Clare, we talked about that off the top of the show. That was a Liberal seat. It's a seat the Liberals are hoping to hold. It would get them up to 3 if they can. But we also know it's well documented at this point, the challenges that Ronnie LeBlanc has faced throughout this campaign. And that's one that the PCs were bullish about. As I said, Tim Houston was down that way just last weekend for one final push to try to flip another red seat blue.
And you know, in Glace Bay Dominion, the incumbent John White has got to be hoping that this silence of information is not another close race. He won the closest race in Nova Scotia in 2021. He just eked it out with a 29-vote lead over the Cape Breton the former Cape Breton regional mayor, John Morgan. There's always something going on in Glace Bay Dominion that's interesting. We would like to see some results coming from there. They are starting to trickle in, but we're still waiting to hear from a couple of those races.
The complete collapse of the Liberal vote here tonight. I mean, I know 21% and look at the NDP with the same share of the vote, but they're not falling where the Liberals need them to fall.
No, considering where the Liberals came from, when we think of the powerhouse that Stephen McNeil was, and now to this point, it's devastating for the party.
Let's check in on Zach Churchill if we can. I think we have some details about how he's doing here.
So this is with, pardon me, 75% of the polls reporting with Nick Hilton. He's a municipal councillor in the area. He's got that 195 vote lead over Zach Churchill. As I say, with 31 of 40 polls reporting, this is not heading Zach Churchill's way tonight, at least at this point.
It's a bad night for Zach.
Yeah, big night for the PCs, big night for the NDP as well. Let's check in at the NDP election headquarters where Taryn Grant is standing by there. Taryn.
Yeah, it sure is looking like a big night. I mean, let's face it, there are still some question marks for the NDP. There are some tight races where we don't know yet if the NDP are going to pull ahead into victories for some of their ridings. But we've elected a number of their incumbents. And actually behind me, they've changed the sign recently. There was a big cheer that went up in the room. They changed the sign at the podium where Claudia Chender will be speaking later. It now says leader of the official opposition. So they are feeling very confident about their place, and people are getting excited in here. I don't think we're quite yet to the level of the party at the Tory headquarters based on what Shayna's been bringing us. It sounds like they're totally jubilant there, and they're still waiting on some important results to come in for the NDP, but overall, they're feeling good. This is looking like a really good night for this party. Tom?
All right, Taryn, thanks so much for that. Music's still not as good as it is in Sydney Mines, though, because that's where the party seems to be rocking tonight. Let's get over to the panel now. Vern Ramasar, and he has his political friends with him there to talk about what's happening here tonight.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, and as you touched on there, it's obviously a big night for the PCs. But let's talk about, and maybe this isn't the right word, the implosion of the Liberals at this point. What does this mean, Kelly? I mean, where does this leave us?
Well, right now, it leaves us with 2 seats. We have a number of battles underway. Bedford South, Annapolis, Halifax, Needham. So Yarmouth, Hammonds Plains, Lucasville, I'm going through the list here, but there are a number of races. It's pretty early in the night. From what I'm hearing, we haven't gotten a lot of the advance polls in. So before, I think to quote Monty Python, I'm not dead yet, or I'm not dead yet.
If we're doing Monty Python, I am ready. Yeah. I have been, that's my teenage years. We're banking on this moment.
Fine. We can out-Python you,
That's it.
I don't think so. I wrote a paper on it at university.
I love it. Folks, this is an early election calls, and we're going till 11. So between 10 and 11, nothing but Python.
But I mean, Vern, where it leaves them right now is in a distant third with 1 more seat than the Independent. Their leader is losing. They have had a total collapse in their vote. And, you talk about vote efficiency. The support was a mile wide, but it was an inch deep. So it's not delivering anything in the first past the post system. And if we're going to do pop culture references, if you're old enough to remember WKRP, we're coming up to American Thanksgiving. This is the turkey drop episode for the Liberals. They are dropping like bags of wet cement. And, some of this, people are going to look at this on a national level and say how much of this is Justin Trudeau's unpopularity, the unpopular Liberal Prime Minister, the carbon tax, the fisheries policy. That's going to be part of it, no question. But right next door, there's a newly elected Liberal Premier who won. So this says something, and I don't know, Kelly, if you can explain this. This says something about the state of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, the steps they took or did not take after losing government in 2021. Ian Rankin is one of the 2 people that's on the board who lost that last election. And you have to wonder if Zach Churchill even wants to win with the way this is going right now.
I think when we sit down tomorrow, I think that we're going to have to do some soul searching. I would suggest that we not take a whole heck of a lot of time doing that, because I suspect Tim Houston will be on the phone trying to recruit more members. because that's sort of been his pattern.
You might only have to make 2 calls if this doesn't improve.
Well,
right?
we'll see. Again, it's early. There are races that are pretty tight, and you know, it's not a lot of votes there, but sometimes that's all it takes, right? It takes one vote. But I will say that it's, you know, we're still waiting for some advanced polls, and that's where a lot of people, I know that I would drive folks to the advanced polls. I had the highest advanced voting in the entire province last year, and that was a deliberate strategy. So if we're looking at races here that don't have those advanced polls in, I would suggest that we're missing some things.
And this is much more of a repudiation than it is to Justin Trudeau. Like, there's a lot more at play here than just that. You know, Barb had made a comment when we were off air about this is a repudiation of a non-incumbent, which is, you know, it's like kick the bums out, but of non-incumbents, which is of the opposition, yeah, which is very unusual. This is the classic sort of Latin phrase from Atlantic Canada, David. Asinus ex ius, which means the arse is right out of her.
But how did they put it back in her? Because that's going to be the challenge.
On that note, let's go back to the desk for the latest.
That might be a discussion for later on, maybe. Yeah. Thanks for that, Vernon. Interesting to note, Amy, there's only 135,000 votes in the system. Interesting because we thought that with the advanced polls being tabulated before and the button being hit, that we would have that much faster. But really, 135,000 votes in the system.
Yeah, it's very puzzling and a bit frustrating because you want to know now.
Yeah, and as Kelly points out there, the advanced polls, we should like to see more of those. And obviously, that's why we are holding off on some of these calls here, because some of them are just too close to call based on what we have. Let's get over to Paul Withers now. He has some more riding results for us that help to paint the picture of what's happening in the province tonight.
Well, that's right. We heard earlier that Fred Tilley won up in Cape Breton. He was the most recent floor crosser. The other one was Brendan Maguire, who left earlier in the year, crossed the floor, and walked into a cabinet position. He is leading. We have elected him. That is, we have not elected him, of course. The people have elected him. The CBC Decision Desk has projected him as the winner tonight. He's leading by 819 votes, with a little under half of the polls reporting, but it's a pretty comfortable lead. He leads by 395 votes. Here we are into Annie Ganesh. We're talking cabinet ministers here. Maguire was a cabinet minister. Michelle Thompson is the health minister. We are projecting her as the winner. She's got 1,771 votes. She's got a 1,200 vote lead over the Liberal, with more than half of the polls reporting. Let's take a look in Lunenburg. Susan Corkum-Greek is the incumbent there, Minister of Development in the Houston government. She leads by 2,000 votes over Melissa Duggan of the Liberal Party, Nick Janney in third place with the NDP. Of course, Corkum-Greek had that mini kerfuffle with the Tim Hortons cards, where the campaign manager was giving them out to voters. And this is the one I started with tonight, so proving once again that uncanny ability of voters in Eastern Shore to go and pick a winner. Kent Smith elected tonight, the Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture. He's got 1,241 votes, with nearly half the polls reporting. He's got a 919 vote lead over the Liberal. I don't know what they're drinking down there in the Eastern Shore, but they sure do know how to pick a winner. Tom?
Yeah, they have it right, that's for sure. Okay, Paul, thanks much for that. Quick look at the scoreboard. 39 leading and elected for the PCs, and obviously the PC majority government there being projected. The NDP with 10, 2 for the Liberals, 1 independent elected.
Three seats still to come.
3 seats still to come. And a lot of these races still too close to call, so we're working on all that. Let's get you over to the PC headquarters now. Shane Luck is standing by, and I believe she has Peter MacKay, a very familiar face in Nova Scotia politics, with her.
That's right, Tom. I'm here with a face that many Nova Scotians will recognize, Peter MacKay, former federal politician, former cabinet minister. You have been a veteran of many, many elections. How would you say this night compares to others that you've seen?
Well, this is a very exciting night. I think it's the first time in probably 40 years that you've seen a back-to-back Conservative majority with an increased majority. And Premier Houston and his team worked extremely hard for this victory. It's a resounding victory, one that really speaks to an endorsement for the policies that the Premier's pursued, particularly on health care, but many issues that came up during the campaign, environment, of course, and the isthmus specifically between New Brunswick and the province. Taxes are a big issue. And the federal carbon tax, I believe, was one of the drivers that really put wind in the sails of the provincial party. So I think if you're watching this from the Ottawa government vantage point, they should be worried. And I think that this is an election that strengthens the hand of our province and our government to negotiate with Ottawa.
You mentioned, of course, Ottawa, the Isthmus. Mr. Houston said that he felt this would strengthen his negotiating position. What would you say would be the next steps that you would watch for Mr. Houston to make?
Well, I think after he names his cabinet, and all of his cabinet has been re-elected, he has more to choose from now. I think you're going to see an effort on the part of the Premier and his ministers to engage more confidently with Ottawa on some of these issues. They were being challenged and I would say even dismissed in some cases, which led to the early call on behalf of the government. And so I think you're going to see Nova Scotia in a better position on some of these big issues that they hope to tackle, continuing to improve our health care, continuing with infrastructure investments, and lowering taxes, which is something that the Premier has promised, and you're seeing that coming from the federal Conservative Party as well. And I don't want to mix American politics with this night, but you're going to see as well the provinces engage with the federal government on how to deal with the United States of America, and that's very important. Obviously, it's going to impact Canadians, our industry in lumber and steel and fish and many other products. You're going to see now premiers like Tim Houston going to Ottawa and having their voices heard by the federal government.
Certainly something to watch. Thank you very much, Mr. McKay. Tom, Peter McKay, former federal politician, back to you.
All right, Shana, thank you so much for that. Music getting better in Pictou County there tonight with the playlist coming on there. And Peter McKay obviously feeling a lot of the love that the PCs are feeling tonight in this province, because at 39 seats, they are sitting pretty.
To be
There's
happy
no doubt
about
about
tonight.
it.
It's a spectacular
and now 40
showing for
just
them.
popped up to 40 as we only have 2 seats left to report.
That's what Chris had said. They'd love to have one with a 4 in front of it.
Well,
so
right now they do. They've got one with a 4 and a 1 after it. That is a big
number. As they approach record territory, 42 being the record for the...
Set by Buchanan.
Yeah, for the most seats held by one party in the province of Nova Scotia. Paul, let's check in on the riding of Clare. I think we have some interesting results there.
Yeah, it's been sort of flipping around back and forth. Ryan Robichaud, the PC challenger there over Ronnie LeBlanc. Robichaud has 386 votes, so he's got a 165 vote lead over Ronnie LeBlanc with 20% of the polls reporting there. This isn't done, but this is heading the way that progressive conservatives kind of expected down there. They didn't think that Mr. LeBlanc would be able to withstand the unpopularity of the federal government down there, even though he is a fisherman and he was opposed to a lot of what he sees happening by DFO. That may not be enough for him. Certainly, the progressive conservatives have focused on this riding. They sent in the Minister of Fisheries, Kent Smith, to say Ronnie's a nice guy. Everybody knows that, but you want to be part of Team Houston so that we can, fight DFO on illegal lobster fishing. Let's take a look at some of the other ridings where the Liberals are losing big. Brad McGowan, the school supervisor in Halifax, running away with that election with a 959 vote lead over the New Democrat. This was a Liberal seat. The Liberal is in 3rd place. They are losing badly in this riding. Let's take a look at our next riding here, which is a surprise, would be a surprise and an unpleasant one for the Liberals. Damien Stoloff, a marketer with Natural Foods, with a 53 vote lead over Braden Clark, the Liberal incumbent in that riding. This is one we're watching. They're a little, a third of the vote maybe in there. So Bedford South won that the Liberals hoped that the incumbency would pay off. Interesting here, this is Leah Martin in Cole Harbour again. This was a riding without the Liberal incumbent. It was Tony Ince. He is not reoffering. Leah Martin building up a lead with 28 of 33 polls reporting. She's got 1,688 votes. That's a 187 vote lead over the New Democrat. The Liberal, in a Liberal incumbent seat, in 3rd place, Tanya Maloney. So just a note about Leah Martin, she would have to be considered a very serious cabinet pick. She worked as a special advisor to Tim Houston, to Environment Minister Tim Hallman. She would be the first Mi'kmaq elected to the Nova Scotia legislature should she prove successful tonight. She seems to be heading her way, at least at this point.
Just 2 seats to report in Nova Scotia, but the PCs up to 41. This has been really a spectacular night for the PCs. You would have to say, Amy, it's a mission accomplished for the PCs.
Absolutely. This is a runaway election for them. We've seen with the popular vote, they've just been going well past what they did the last time when they had 38.2% of the share, and now they've gone even higher. If we can pull that graphic up. Look at that, 54.3%, that well over what they needed for majority. But another interesting number, of course, is the NDP with 21.9% of the vote share, the Liberals with 21.8%. So virtually a tie, yet that's not reflected in what we're seeing in the seats, with the NDP sitting right now at 10 and the Liberals at 2. And here we go with the seat change. PCs a gain of 10 so far, NDP up 4, and of course we're seeing that with the Liberal collapse down 14.
It's it's worst case scenario almost for the Liberals. They're down to leading in 2 seats. Their leader is fighting for his life in his own seat with just 7 polls left to come, and their overall vote share has cratered. And what's interesting is if we think about that chart we just saw, the NDP's vote share is virtually identical to what it was just 3 years ago. And yet look at the bottom difference along the score line there. 10 seats, that's 4 more than where they landed at the end of the last election. That's an incredibly efficient vote, but it's still, as we've said all night, way behind the PCs, who right now are in 40. And, I do have to correct one thing, Amy, because we were talking earlier about supermajority and what is required here. One of the great things about working down here regularly is you meet a lot of people who are much smarter than you. Few people are smarter than Gordon Hebb, the legislature's lead counsel, and he very kindly sent me an email not long ago to point out that to get supermajority status, you actually need 38, not 37 seats, because one of the government members will be speaker, and it's 2/3 of members, including the speaker. So just a small note there.
They have some room to spare.
They have room to spare.
So far,
at the moment.
least.
It's looking very good for the PCs. It's hard to imagine them dreaming up a better scenario than this at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good night so far for Tim Houston and his team.
Growing the party, growing the seat count even more, certainly meeting expectations of the party, for sure. Speaking of the PC party, let's get back to Shayna Luck at PC headquarters, where I believe she has a guest with her as well. Shayna.
Hi, Tom. Yes, I'm here with Cameron McKean, the other co-chair of the campaign. Cameron, we were talking just a minute ago, looking at the seat count, saying that this is John Buchanan territory, and you said to me, no, right? Tell me about that.
Well, at 54% of the popular vote, that's Robert Stanfield territory, and it's something that hasn't, I wasn't even around then. So, but it's talking like 54%, that's just incredible. And it's the numbers that haven't been seen maybe in 50 or 60 years. And we already are the first government in 40 years to increase the size of the majority in their second term. So it's a pretty spectacular night, and it's exhilarating, relief, everything. It's just an amazing night.
Thinking back over the campaign that you ran, what would you say, if you could pinpoint the top thing that you were doing? What was it that you were doing right to lead to this result?
Well, you know what? I actually think one thing that was really important was the CBC debate. I think Premier Tim Houston came across as a clear winner of that debate. He was the statesman. He was the person that realizes government can't do everything, but you make efforts to do what you can, and that resonated with what he's been doing in the last 3 years and resonated what his plans are for the next 3 to 4 years. So I think that was a defining moment when the other two leaders were next to him, and he showed that he's the one to lead Nova Scotia for the next 4 years.
I know that we talked to you at the last election night, and you said that this would rank right up there with many important events in your life. Tell me about how that.
I just want to say there's a clarification from 4 years. Obviously, getting married to my wife was a very important moment, so I don't want to put anything higher than that. But this is still a very amazing night, and I will put it around the Patriots winning the Super Bowl. I won't put it higher to getting married, and I won't put it higher to getting with my kids, but it's up there around with the Patriots winning the Super Bowl.
So you feel like the Patriots at this point?
I feel like sort of like I'm a coach on the Patriots, so that's what I feel like. And Tim Houston is our quarterback, and we feel really good about the night that we had.
Cameron, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Tom, Cameron McKean, the co-chair of this campaign, talking about the results and really just, I think, comparing himself to the coach of a winning football team.
I'm really glad that he clarified his comments from the last time around. I'm sure his wife is especially glad that he did that. All right, Shayna, thank you so much for that.
I think it's been haunting him for the whole time.
He's been reminded of it a few times, I'm sure. Yeah,
I'm not
no
sure
doubt
if
about
Tim
it.
Houston is Drake May or Tom Brady or who he is.
Well, we'll see him, but maybe the next election. Who knows?
We'll
Maybe
find
we'll
out.
start putting labels on it then, yeah.
So this isn't over yet, folks. I mean, we know what's going to happen, who's the majority government winner, but, you know, we've been looking at a number of ridings where it's just been fluctuating back and forth, too close. Let's take a look at some of those where it's just been seesawing back and forth. Bedford South, well, there's the vote share in Bedford South. Look at how close that is. The Progressive Conservative up in the riding there.
They're kind of like a twist tie there. They've just
That's a good way to
all
put it.
over the place.
This is a race between the Progressive Conservative and the Liberal there. This is the one where none of the three major, well, this is the one with Braden Clark.
This is just 70 votes separating the PCs and Liberals
and you can see it in
here.
those lines.
22 of 48
tight.
polls reporting in that one.
We talked about Annapolis early as well. Here's the vote share in that riding. Again, 44.6 to 43.6, just 1 point separating the incumbent Carmen Kerr against David Bowlby for the Progressive Conservatives, with Bowlby, as of right now, winning.
He's in a 30-vote lead.
Yeah, it's not much. If we go to Clare, we've been watching that one. Let's see how tight that is. Well,
It seems to be some separation there now.
this is one where it was tight, and there is separation happening there, and this does not bode well for Ronnie LeBlanc and the Liberal in Clare. Finally, let's take a look at Cole Harbour. And this is one where we are starting to see some separation with the PCs pulling ahead in Cole Harbour, with the Liberal again trailing badly tonight in that riding, a riding that they did hold, one where the Progressive Conservative, Leah Martin, is looking much better.
Okay, we do have some news for the Liberals tonight with our first Liberal-elect as well. Let's bring that up.
And this is Ian Rankin. Interesting that he is one of the two left standing at this particular point. Mr. Rankin was Premier of Nova Scotia, defeated by Tim Houston in 2021. He came in with Stephen McNeil in 2013. The decision desk projects that he will actually hold his seat.
Interesting thing.
Good news for the Liberals.
Sorry about that, Paul, but an interesting thing to note about this seat specifically, Tory strategists that I was talking to in the lead up to this said that the one seat, if there was one Liberal seat they didn't think was there to be flipped, it was in fact Ian Rankin's seat. So Ian Rankin proving the Tories right in that situation.
The research is solid there.
All right, let's see how the panel feels about that latest development. Vernon Ramazar is with them again. Vernon.
Well, I mean, the numbers are certainly interesting, and I have to ask the panel, why would this have happened?
Why would it have
Early election call?
No,
Can that really be all of it? I mean,
No, not all of it, but I would say it's part of it. Tim Houston made very effective use of all the levers that were at his disposal, from the ability to send out brochures in the weeks prior to the election being called, to an early election call when other parties weren't quite ready. There are a number. And that last-minute defection as well, which had an impact. But
presumably he was looking at the polls as well, and he was polling quite well.
Yeah, and the Liberal Party had lost half of its caucus in the time, its incumbent caucus in the time since 2021, with 2 floor crossings that we've talked about before. With a by-election loss, with Twyla Grouse being elected for the Progressive Conservatives in Preston, and then a half dozen retirements, 3 of which on the eve of the provincial election, declared on the Friday at noon before the Sunday election call, which would have obviously put those 3 local Liberal associations also into some turmoil. So again, they were starting off, already quite behind.
All right, I think we've got to go back to the desk now and see what's going on there.
Well, that's right, Vern. Thank you very much, because the CBC Decision Desk has seen enough to decide who will make the official opposition in the province of Nova Scotia. And it will be the new Democratic Party, led by Claudia Chender, leader of the official opposition.
So this is history in the making. Claudia Chender becomes the first woman elected to be the leader of the official opposition in Nova Scotia. Of course, Carla McFarland held that post after Jamie Bailey resigned, but this is a big moment for her tonight.
It is. It's also a real validation of the campaign they ran. You know, when they first kicked things off.
Celebrating in NDP land tonight for sure. Look at that.
You know, when they first kicked off their campaign, some of us were of the view that things were a little bit slow, perhaps even a little bit disorganized. They were almost 5 days in before Ms. Chender made her first policy announcement. But one thing that seemed to really click for them was when they got to the CBC debate at the midway point in the campaign, and perhaps it was a calculated plan to go slow and then really push at that halfway point. And clearly, if that was the plan, it's paid off here, because
she had a strong night.
She had a very strong night. And, you know, what's really striking is that while the total vote share has not grown very much, the seat count right now is up by 5. It's into double figures, and as Taryn said at the leadoff tonight, getting to double figures, 10, 11, 12, and finishing second would be a dream scenario. And right now they're in dreamland, I would say.
Of course, we're talking about more money, more staff, just more ability to build the party even further, and, you know, in their hope to be the next government in waiting. So that gives them the tools.
It does give them the tools. It also makes it an even better sell for them when they're going out into parts of the province where they've not been strong since the Darrell Dexter days, the mainland Nova Scotia rural areas. And when you look down the polls that we see coming in, some of these seats where they're not winning, but they're in second, that's an improvement over previous elections where typically they've been finishing third since the Dexter government was defeated. That's a sign of growth. That's a sign of things that Claudia Chender and her team can build upon. And as you rightly point out, Amy, official opposition status comes with more funding for more staff, which means you have more folks to help you do all of the necessary work that goes along with leading the official opposition.
And on the flip side, it's going to be layoffs for the Liberals who held that post previously.
Yeah, hard to see an upside for the Liberals in this tonight. They're sitting at 2 on the board and haven't moved. Just 1 seat left to report, but 200,000 votes in the system now. So they're busy making their way through the votes for sure. But Paul, there's no doubt about this. This is an historic night and a very important night for the NDP here in Nova Scotia.
Right. So they've re-elected their most of their incumbents. They're the ones that they've elected. They've elected 6 in their leading, and 5 they've added Krista Gallagher. The last I checked, she's been elected in Halifax, Shabukdo. But you know, it is mission accomplished for Claudia Chender and the New Democrats. They have hopped past the Liberals, and not just hopped past, but really hopped past them. They are clearly in the driver's seat in terms of the opposition. This is a big night for them. It is them back on the board, back in second place for the first time since 2006, positioning them as the most likely to succeed or to be able to take advantage if Houston and his government falters in the next term. But for Claudia Chender, there's a reason why they were celebrating there. Official opposition was what they were hoping for. Remember what she said earlier in the election. Sure, obviously we're running to form government, but we will take second place, and they've got it tonight.
Yeah, they sure do.
Solidly so.
And all seats reporting now as well, so things really solidifying there on the board for sure.
Okay, let's have another look at the big picture now. We'll see the share of the vote. 54.6 for the PCs. Again, Mike, the Liberals and the NDP neck and neck when you see it in that chart, but when it goes breaking down into seat change, it's a whole other story. 22.1 for the Liberals, 21.5 for the NDP. Really almost neck and neck there, but it just didn't translate where the votes landed.
Well, this is a reflection of the first past the post system, isn't it? Yep. Where, you know, you can be quite close to another party in terms of vote share and seat count doesn't reflect it. Ironically, one of the pledges in Zach Churchill's platform for this election was to bring in proportional representation. And I think on a night like tonight, he and his team are probably wishing we already had it. It would have made a very big difference down at the bottom of the screen.
PCs +9, NDP +5. Double-digit losses for the Liberals, -14.
They're down to 2 seats at the moment, and as we know, only one of those they can absolutely count on. Ian Rankin has been projected to win there, but this is really
Their party status is hanging in the balance.
It is, and it's worth noting that of those 2 seats, Zach Churchill is still not one of them, with 35 of 40 polls reporting he's still trailing Nick Hilton by about 180 votes, and so that is very much a situation where every vote may end up counting down in Yarmouth.
Well, what a nightmare for the Liberals and Zach Churchill tonight. All right, let's get to the NDP, where we know they're in a party mood because we saw them earlier celebrating the latest news. Taryn Grant is with them again. Taryn.
Yeah, it's really picking up in here, Tom. And you and our other colleagues have said it all. Here comes in Susie Hansen singing behind me. She has quite a voice. I've heard her sing before at their AGM. She just said it's an amazing night, and it is. This is as good as this party could have hoped for, and everyone in this room is really just picking up in their energy. The numbers are picking up. Of course, a lot of people wait to see what the results are going to be before they come to parties like this. But all those people are showing up now. Of course, they're going to be facing, as an opposition party, a very strong majority government, but I don't think anyone here is thinking about that right now. They're waiting for their leader, Claudia Chender, to step out, and it sounds like Susie's going to be introducing her soon, so we'll see what Claudia has to say when she steps out and speaks to this very excited crowd. Tom?
All right, thanks very much for that, Taryn. Yeah, they are certainly celebrating there. There's no doubt about that. Taryn barely able to hear us and us barely able to hear her. That's a sign of a good night for the NDP for sure. Let's get you over to Paul now at the board with a look at how the NDP managed to do this tonight by looking at some of the ridings, Paul.
Right, their incumbents are coming home, are getting elected, and they're adding a new face. That first new face is Krista Gallagher in Halifax, Shabukta. The decision desk says she has won this race. And you can see by the results, she's got 2,302 votes with almost 3/4 of the votes being counted. Gallagher of the New Democrats, 2,300 votes, a 1,161 vote lead over the progressive conservative Tanya Millay, who's got 1,100 votes, and the Liberal Gerard Beret coming in third.
Paul, I have to interrupt you there. I'm sorry. We have a development happening here with Claudia Chender in the NDP. She is now entering the room and meeting and greeting her supporters tonight. Biggest smile I've seen on her face during this whole campaign.
Must feel pretty good tonight.
You bet. 48-year-old rather, a lawyer, mother of 3 school-age children. She talked about being a mother during the campaign. First elected in Dartmouth South in 2017. And the first female elected leader of the official opposition, Amy, which we were talking about earlier tonight.
Yeah, she's having a great night. You can just hear the enthusiasm in the room, and she's all smiles, isn't she?
It's a real sign of just how effective their campaign was. This is everything that they could have hoped for tonight. This makes them a party on the upswing. This makes them a party that's growing. And
she's got a little pep in her step, doesn't she?
Says so.
And look at how many people are in the room. I mean, I remember NDP events in the past where the leader would come in the room. Wasn't that full? Wasn't that many people? That looks like a good, healthy crowd tonight. As she makes her way to the microphone, let's listen in to see what she has to say. Claudia Chender, official leader of the opposition here in Nova Scotia.
I could hear you, and now I am so glad to be with you. Thank you so much. I want to thank our amazing team of candidates, campaign workers, and volunteers, and thank you to all of you. We did this tonight. And a huge congratulations to our incredible new caucus. Susan LeBlanc. Susie Hansen. Lisa LaChance. Let's cheer for Kendra so she can hear us in Cape Breton. And Krista Gallagher, where are you, Krista? Woo! And there are more to come, including, I'm told, Paul Wozni of Sackville Cobequid. It's about time we got Sackville back. I want to give a special thank you to the people of Dartmouth South, and I know you're out there. for putting faith in me again to be your MLA. It is truly an honor to serve the community, and I am so excited to get back to Dartmouth. Thank you to my family, to Molly and Anna and Sam, and to my husband Jamie and my mom. I truly could not have done this without them. And thank you to all the campaign spouses and families and communities and supporters. True story, I ran into Susan LeBlanc's partner polling vote on my street at 7:45 this morning when I was walking my dog. And thank you to Nova Scotians across this province for putting your faith in our amazing team. I have spoken to Tim and to Zach, and I've congratulated them on their campaigns. And while we had hoped for a different result tonight, make no mistake, our vision for a different kind of government has struck a nerve. And I am here to tell you that the Nova Scotia NDP is on the rise. People across this province, including, I'm guessing, most of you, cast their vote for a government that actually cares about all Nova Scotians. One that is more honest, more responsible to you, the people we serve. Our campaign was one of positivity and possibility for all of us. Our vision, a government that would protect renters, build affordable housing, and ensure that Nova Scotians can actually find homes that they can afford, is possible. A province where Nova Scotians have consistent primary care is possible. And we will not stop until it is real. Because tonight we've made it clear that the Nova Scotia NDP, that our incredible team is the alternative. Tonight, our incredibly effective opposition has grown, and we are now the official opposition. I am very proud to be the first woman elected as leader of the official opposition. But in this, as in all things, including when I was the first woman House Leader and every other job I've had and that we have had and where we have been first, in this we stand on the shoulder of giants. And one giant in particular, and I think it's really important to say that without Alexa McDonough, we would not be here tonight. And our caucus will be there. We will show up to work next week and every day to work towards better, to fight for you, and to hold Tim Houston and his giant band of MLAs to account. My friends, while today marks the end of this election, it marks the beginning of the next one. And after 3 years, we know what we are getting from the Conservatives. Broken promises and backroom deals and not a lot for the rest of us. And Tim Houston got away with it when the Liberals were in opposition. But that ends today. We will continue to fight for homes that people can actually afford. That's worth applause. For healthcare that you can actually rely on, and for a government that puts you first. Today is the beginning. Tomorrow we get back to work, and tonight, now, we celebrate. Thank you very much.
There you go, NDP leader, official opposition leader, Claudia Chender, talking about a party on the rise and talking about already getting back to work, holding Tim Houston, the PC government, to account in a boisterous room tonight where they are feeling the love of Claudia Chender and the NDP's success tonight. They were at 10 on the board there just a second or two ago, down to 9 seats leading and elected right now. You see to the right of your screen, we are awaiting the PC leader, Premier Tim Houston, to walk into the Wellness Centre in Pictou County in just a few moments. But on the left part of the screen, the PCs continue to tick up.
That's the highest it's been all night.
This has been a gargantuan night for the PCs, really. Now a record. It would be a record if this holds. 42, of course, that last record.
John Buchanan.
There's a couple of close ridings that have been flipping back and forth. Clayton Park West is one where the Progressive Conservative leads by 4 votes, Sackville-Uniacke by 63 votes over the New Democrats. So we could still see some fluctuation on those NDP numbers.
Draw your attention to the bottom right of the screen there, Paul. I believe that's Mr. No, that's is that Mr. Houston?
No,
it's not. No, it's Cameron. It's Cameron who's
Not the
party co-chair, the campaign co-chairs. They're walking in together just now. So just moments away, maybe seconds away from the PC leader arriving there. But again, PC's 43 on the board, leading and elected in this province. What an extraordinary night it's been for them.
And it's been, as we say, it's been historic on a number of occasions with regard to Claudia Chender and now breaking John Buchanan's record, possibly.
Well, it's a dream scenario for the PCs, isn't it? And Mr. Houston has talked a lot throughout his political career about how John Buchanan was a bit of a political hero of his, and so I'm sure that he'll take quite a bit of pride if he holds on to that 43 number of being the person to break that record. As Paul had said earlier, it's really a validation of a lot of things here. His decision to go early, the way that he managed expectations on things like healthcare and affordability in housing, making the argument that these are big problems that are going to need more than just a single mandate. And yes, we're making some progress, but yes, we also know there's much more work to do. And that was a very effective way of preventing his opponents from defining him. In the past, when you see vulnerability for a sitting government, the opposition parties are usually able to take advantage of that. And despite their efforts, neither Claudia Chender nor Zach Churchill were able to chip into that, as evidenced by that scoreboard down at the bottom, 43-9 for the NDP, 2 Liberals, and of course, Elizabeth Smith-McCrosenback, an independent.
That, right? Clearly what happened was that he maintained, that is Tim Houston, maintained the benefit of the doubt with the voters. He had that precious quantity that the incumbent governments need to have. People were willing to give him the time that he said he needed. Remember, he got elected on fixed health care by the metric most people use, which is, do you have a family doctor? That has not happened yet. He said we need more time. Nova Scotians were willing to give him more time. As we said earlier, it's normal for Nova Scotians to give a majority government a second kick at the can, but not like this. I mean, this is an epic win for the Progressive Conservatives. We've been talking about the New Democrats, but really this is the Progressive Conservatives' night in Nova Scotia.
His whole message was, I didn't break it, but I'll fix it.
Yeah, and I'm fixing it.
Stick with me.
He added the ing on there before the announcement of the campaign sometime. And as you say, Paul, people gave him another chance to keep doing that important work, and he didn't let someone else redefine him in this election campaign or even leading up to this election campaign. And so he's seeing the fruit bear for that tonight with 42 seats now leading and elected in Nova Scotia.
You've got to wonder, though, with that many seats, how many people are going to say, I'd like to be in cabinet. Can you put me in cabinet?
It's going to get complicated and crowded, isn't it? There's a lot of mouths to feed in the PC party now.
It is. All of his cabinet ministers have been returned. right? All of his reoffering cabinet ministers have been reelected. So you start with that. Then you have somebody like Fred Tilley, who did him a real big favor.
He's been saying very strongly he would like to be in cabinet.
As several people have said to me, Fred Tilley said the quiet part loud. You know, even on the day he crossed the floor, he freely acknowledged that he thinks the best place for him to be is in cabinet. And so surely Fred Tilley is hoping that comes for him. But there are others, you know, Tim Outhit, who the former HRM councillor, who's taken a long time Liberal seat that was held by Kelly Regan, our panelist. Surely he's somebody who'd like to be in there.
And Mike, here we see Premier Tim Houston walking into the room now in Pictou County. I believe that's his wife with him, his wife Carol. Walking in past the blue balloons and sporting quite the smile tonight. There's no doubt about it.
And as we say, it's not going to get any better than this for the Progressive Conservatives. This is as good as it gets. An unbelievable win.
Born in Halifax, grew up in a military family, as he's often told people he is proud of. He studied at St. Mary's University, entered politics, winning a seat in 2013 in the general election, again in 2017, and then was chosen party leader in October of 2018. And he was always, has been last, since he's entered politics, a pretty safe bet in the seat in Pictou.
A lot of emotion in that room, isn't there?
Yeah, and he is sort of reaping the benefits of a well-run campaign tonight.
There's a smile from ear to ear, I think you'd say.
Well, it's mission accomplished.
Sure is, yeah.
You know, one of
more
the things,
than mission accomplished, actually.
One of the things that he talked about during his last news conference of the campaign in Halifax was a hope that there would be less opposition in the House after he returned, and he's also getting that wish as we see. You know, 43 seats is what the ticker is currently at for the PCs, 9 for the NDP, so they're down into single digits at the moment. There's that close Clayton Park West race that Paul had mentioned. Liberals down to 2, and of course Elizabeth Smith McCrossan re-elected as an independent. So, you know, it's going to be a real job for Claudia Chender and her team to put up opposition when you're dealing with a government with this level of strength. And frankly, with that level of popular vote, it's pretty easy for him to point to the fact that he's doing the work of the people, that the people wanted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Premiers in Canada have not had nights like this in recent years, have they?
It's been a rare thing to see for sure.
Yeah, he's a premier who grew in this election. Sort of the post-COVID election, where he added seats, added vote share. I mean, smashingly added vote shares and smashingly added seats.
I heard someone describe it as they still had that new car smell.
Absolutely, yeah. And, you know, the fixed election date, he swore to that when he was first elected. The Premier said he would adhere to that, did not. But
he's not paying the price for it tonight.
He's not paying the price tonight at all. Nova Scotians are rewarding him with another majority, a massive majority, and he's in a big crowded room there tonight. It's going to take him a while to get to the stage, but you know, he said he needed that new mandate to do bigger things for Nova Scotia. To make it happen was the slogan we heard throughout the campaign.
And they certainly do have their work cut out ahead of them.
He does. I mean, he has a meeting tomorrow, Premier's meeting with the Prime Minister tomorrow. To talk about trade tariffs, and so big issues on the board for sure. And you know, he says he's going to have a better voice or be more able to stand up to Ottawa on behalf of Nova Scotians with a mandate and with 43 leading and elected seats.
But he's still dealing with health care, all the issues that he campaigned on. So there's a long list of things he has to accomplish in his second mandate, and he said that's what he needed to get the job done.
And there are a lot of challenges, and maybe we'll talk about them a little bit later tonight. But right now, you know, tonight is not so much a night for him to worry about challenges. It is to celebrate. Right now, he has 12 more seats than we did. There we see him giving a hug to former Pictou Centre MLA and Cabinet Minister Pat Dunn, who retired and did not reoffer in this election, although the party held that seat. And, you know, it's difficult, him imagining a much better scenario for him this evening.
Do you know, we have had a night of incredible highs and incredible lows in politics. They have both been on display. You're looking right now at a party on an incredible high. And when you look at that Liberal seat count, you are looking at a party that is on an incredible low.
Very lopsided on the board tonight.
That is for sure. Tim Houston there with his wife, Carol, at the edge of the stage now. I'm preparing to speak to his supporters there, and there are plenty of them in the room.
It's hard for him to get through the room with all the hugs and congratulations.
That's for sure, yeah, and he's quite all right with that. You can be sure of that. It's been a remarkable night, really, for the PC party in Nova Scotia. Paul says mission accomplished, probably even beyond that. I mean, this is beyond the expectations of a lot of the people who were saying that it would be a PC win tonight, but few felt it would be this big. All right, so there he is, Premier Tim Houston at the microphone, ready to address the people in Pictou County at the Wellness Center there. Let's listen in to what he has to say.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much, each and every one of you. This is an incredible night. Thank you for being here to share it with each of us. Thank you to Cam and Tara. What an incredible campaign you ran. Thank you so much. And to the entire team in the central campaign office, wow, the hours, you go in there at 8 o'clock in the morning, they're there, 8 p.m. They were there, we worked, we were dedicated. Thank you for your efforts, for everything that you did for us. And of course, thank you to the good people of Pictou East. Thank you for continuing to believe in me. Thank you. Thank you for continuing to believe in me and my family. I love our community. I love how supportive you are of me and my entire family. I just love it. Your kindness means an incredible amount to me, to my entire family, and I look forward to continuing to serve you for 4 more years. And thank you to my incredible team in the Pictou East campaign and the constituency office. Many of you have dedicated your lives to supporting me. I can't thank you enough. Thank you. We love you. Victoria. Thank you. Thank you to all of the volunteers on every single campaign across the province. Nobody gets elected alone. Nobody gets elected alone. I certainly did not get elected alone, that's for sure. My mom and my sister are here. Love you guys. Of course, my dad and my brother, I hold them close to me. They're never far from my heart. My Art and Vern, my in-laws, we love you guys. Thank you for everything you do for our family. Paget and Zachary, you guys were kids when we started on this, and now look at them now, adults with their own careers, their own opinions. We love you guys. We're so proud of you. And Carol, my lovely wife, what a journey. What an incredible journey. None of this would be possible with you. None of it would be possible without my family. So thank you so much. I know this hasn't been politics. Not an easy profession. I know it's not easy on my family and the families of candidates across this province. So thank you for being so supportive to get us here where we are today. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone in this room. It's the greatest honor of my life to take this stage tonight and serve every Nova Scotian as their premier for 4 more years. So much is possible for this province. So much is possible for this province. And I promise you, I will do everything I can to make it happen for this province, make it happen for you and for your family. I will give you everything I have. Thank you to every Nova Scotian that exercised their right to vote. And I want to thank Nova Scotians for putting their faith in the PC party and re-electing an even larger PC majority government in this province. Thank you. This victory is for each and every one of you. It's as much for the gentleman in Yarmouth who said, "I'm voting for you," when he opened the door. He said, I'm voting for you because that extra $100 a month that I get under your government means the world to me. That's a big difference in my life, he said, so I'm voting for you because of that. He actually tracked me down a bit later in the pouring rain. He came chasing after me in the pouring rain with his phone, and he said, my sister's on the phone. She doesn't believe I actually spoke to the Premier. Will you talk to her? This victory is for him and his sister and their whole family. And it's as much for them as it is for the gentleman in a building in Bedford who opened up the door, took one look at me and said, go away. NDP, he said. We had a little chat. When I left that apartment building, because it's still Nova Scotia, and because we're all still Blue Nosers, when I left that building a half hour later, he and his wife were standing in the lobby. And I wouldn't say she had him by the ear, but let me say I accepted his apology in the hallway. Folks, this victory is for both of them, because as their Premier, I will support them equally. We thank you. We traveled across this province from one end of this province and stood on, literally personally, I stood on thousands of doorsteps across this province, across our entire campaign. It's well into the hundreds of thousands of doorsteps that we stood on and listened to Nova Scotians and talked to Nova Scotians and sat at kitchen tables and sat inside porches and just talked about our province. And we shared a message with them. A message of positivity and potential. And tonight, they have sent us a message. And I received that message loud and clear. And that message is very simple. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going with the plan. Keep moving forward with the plan. And I want Nova Scotians to know, we will. We will. This victory is as much for the grade 4 student that stood in his driveway with his mom and told me how thankful he is for the school lunch program because he can have lunch with all of his classmates. It's as much because we did that. Together we did that. The PC party did that. It's as much for that grade 4 student as it is for their classmate who told me the food is gross. And you know what? It might be, but we're working on that. Folks, what we do in government matters. It matters. It matters to me, it matters to you, and it matters to every single Nova Scotian. So I thank Nova Scotians for putting their trust in us tonight. And I thank Claudia and Zach for putting their names forward and running spirited campaigns. I thank every single person, no matter the party, who had the courage to put their name forward on a ballot. It takes a lot of courage, and I have great respect for every person who puts their name forward. So I thank them for putting their name forward. And I especially want to thank our incredible slate of PC candidates. We assembled an incredible slate of candidates, serious candidates in every single constituency, and I want to say thank you to my 54 fellow Nova Scotia PC candidates. I was proud to stand beside them. I am proud of the campaigns they ran, and every one of them has a great reason to be proud. And I know some of them will be disappointed right now. And I share in that disappointment because I know the effort that they put forward. But I'm proud of that effort, and I thank them for having the courage to put their name forward. This province was built on hard work. It's all we know. It's all I know. It's what I was taught growing up. And every day that I have the privilege to serve you as your Premier, I commit to work harder and harder and harder every single day, and my entire team buys into a very simple motto: more, faster. More, faster. Do more and go faster. And as I crisscrossed Nova Scotia, I was energized to see the local candidates working harder and harder and harder on every doorstep, doing their part to make it happen. And it was it is humbling to see the candidates, but the campaign volunteers, and every single one of you put your lives on hold and put faith in your candidate. But as leader, I feel it, to put your faith in me, and it means an incredible amount. And on behalf of all of us, from the PC team and all of our campaign volunteers, I just want to say thank you. Tonight, Nova Scotians made a choice, and they chose our team to take Nova Scotia forward. We ran on a platform of make it happen, and I heard somebody. And as I walked in tonight, somebody said, well, you made it happen. And I want to say, yes, we did. But this is just obviously the start of the next phase of the Nova Scotia journey. Make it happen was never meant just to be about winning another mandate. Make it happen is about what we do with that mandate. And I want to tell you and your family that we will make a lot happen with this mandate, because that's what you have a right to expect. You and your family are counting on us to stand up for you, and we will. Whether that means standing up for veterans so they can wear their uniform wherever they want, whenever they want, with pride, and especially to a Remembrance Day service in Nova Scotia. We will stand up for the veterans of this province, whether it means standing up to the federal government when they try to rip Nova Scotians off with funding on the isthmus or a carbon tax that doesn't make sense. I will never let Ottawa take advantage of us without hearing from us. And I think the message that Nova Scotians delivered loud and clear tonight, the message that Nova Scotians delivered loud and clear, and the message that I received: stick to one agenda. And we have one agenda, and that's you, Nova Scotians. That's where our focus will always be. My promise to you is I will give you every single thing I have. I am going to work hard to do more and go faster. And I will always, every single day, be proud to be Nova Scotian, just like you are. And I will never apologize for standing up for Nova Scotia or for standing up for you. Thank you to the Nova Scotians out there tonight listening. Thank you. We're on a good roll. Let's keep it rolling. Let's make it happen. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
That is Premier Tim Houston, earning himself and the PCs another 4-year mandate, and doing it in a convincing fashion for sure. All right, Vernon Ramazar is standing by with the political panel for their insights on that speech and the other developments this evening. Vernon.
Thank you very much, Tom. While we await Mr. Churchill, panelists, your thoughts on those two speeches that we heard? Barbara, perhaps we can start with you.
Well, I think the gloves are off. Claudia Chender is as tough as Tim Houston and made it quite clear that her mandate now is to be the official opposition and to hold him accountable in a way that she says the Liberals were not able to. And I think that's probably fairly accurate. At the same time, I have to say that Tim Houston's speech was why he has 42 seats, which is, it's so personal for him. And when he's, that's as emotional as I've seen him ever, that he has this sort of genuine commitment to, it's a terrible job, it's a hard job, we're doing our best, and I'm going to give it everything I have. And that sounds real. And I think that he has done something that has not been done in any other Canadian election recently, and that is to really be authentic. Like, people hear it and say, that's like a real guy. That is a real person. And I think Chender came across as a real person, but I really have to talk about the Liberals, if I can, because this is no time, I think, to make excuses for them. The Liberal Party has to look at being the Liberal Party. And I had this, maybe nobody will remember, to me they reminded me of Eaton's, They were like the big department store, a Canadian institution. They were never going to go anywhere, and the kids never paid attention to it. And it struck me they had this 89-point policy document. And Zach Churchill said, we're doing this in the first 100 years. Days. 100 years, yeah, right, sorry. I'm not wound up tonight. The first 100 days. And they were basically saying, we're government, we're on our way back. You had this sense that they rolled their eyes when anyone else was government. They were the governing party of Canada. Well, you know what? That's not enough. You don't have that authenticity. Nobody owns the electorate. And I hope that's a lesson that they learn. They've got to work hand-to-hand combat the way the NDP did to get back. Okay, and I don't know if they're up for it.
Can I cut you off? Because I think Zach Churchill's about to make his speech, and let's go back to the desk.
All right, thanks very much for that, Vern. Yes, he has entered the Grand Hotel there in Yarmouth, family in tow, making his way through that room.
More condolences than congratulations.
Exactly. To make a speech he, I am sure, never wanted to make. Difficult campaign, difficult night for him, and you can see it on his face there, really.
And people in the crowd, too. There's some very teary-eyed people in there greeting him. Heartbreaking night for him, I think you describe it. And the Liberals will be doing a lot of soul-searching in the days, months, and years to come.
Zach Churchill's been an MLA since 2010, and he has seen the highest of highs. He's been a part of two governments. He's been cabinet minister in prominent positions. There have been elections where his margin of victory was higher than anyone's except the Premier. But the fact is, if you're in politics as long as him, sooner or later, you're going to stick around to see lower lows.
Zach Churchill making his way to the microphone. Liberal leader, Zach Churchill.
Thank you so much for waiting for me tonight. I really appreciate it. Is this on? Listen, folks, this wasn't the result that we wanted as a party. But I'll tell you, we left it all on the ice out there. We fought hard. And I have to say, I'm so proud of the candidates across this province that stood for office, that really stepped up, showed an incredible amount of bravery and tenacity, people who just really care about their communities and want to help their province. And I'm so sorry that I couldn't get this over the line for them. But hey, it happens. And, sometimes you lose. But I'm really proud of the campaign that we ran. It was built on ideas, on policies, and that's what we kept it about the whole way through. It wasn't about personal attacks. It wasn't about mudslinging. It was about ideas that can really help people. And I think that really matters, because that's when democracy works the best, folks. That's when it works the best, and that's when we get the best out of it. I want to congratulate Premier Houston. I want to congratulate Ms. Chender. They ran incredible campaigns, and the people of Nova Scotia have certainly decided who they want to lead this province. And we respect the voters' decisions and accept with humility in our hearts and with peace in our hearts what they've decided tonight. And that's our job now. And I know a lot of people will have a lot of theories on why this happened. But at the end of the day, this was my responsibility. And this loss belongs to me and me alone. And I'm okay with that. But we've got to move forward as a party and as a community. I really want to thank our local campaign team, family, friends, the staff that came down here that have fought so hard, not just this election, but for the last 14 years as I represented this area. It's been an incredible journey, honestly. It's been such a rewarding job. In the honor of my life to serve the people of Yarmouth, to represent them in the capacity as MLA, and to be the first party leader from Yarmouth as well. I'm just sorry I couldn't be the first premier from Yarmouth. We'll have to wait another time for that. But I do, my kids are sleeping because it's late, but I do hope that they can hear this someday, is, you know, loss is a part of life. Cece's still awake. Loss happens. Sometimes you lose. You get knocked down, and the most important thing is getting back up and how you get back up. And I want my kids to know that. I want the party to know that, and all of you who fought so hard on this campaign to know that. We've got knocked down, but we will get back up. A real special thank you to my mother and my family and everybody who fought so hard here every single day of this campaign while I was out across this whole province. My God, I'm so lucky to have the love of my family and the support of my family in my life. It really means the world to me. And I may just be at more Sunday dinners now as a result of tonight. My incredible wife, Katie, the real love of my life. The best decision I ever made was asking that wonderful woman to marry me. And I couldn't have done any of this without you, honey. And listen, sometimes even when you lose, you win. And well, tonight we suffered a big loss, and that's a burden that I certainly will carry with me for a long time. I think we're just going to win some more time together. And whatever happens next, honey, I'm excited to enter into this next phase of this incredible adventure of life with you, whatever that looks like. I love you so much. And I'm so proud to be your husband. I don't know if the final numbers are in yet for our local campaign. Does anybody know? We're still close, so we're going to wait around and see what those are. But I want to congratulate Nick Hilton and his campaign team on running a really strong race here. And if they win tonight, I'll be the first to go down there and congratulate them. And I encourage everybody else to do that. This has been an absolute honor, folks. It's been an honor leading this party. It has been an honor representing this area. And certainly, I will be taking some time once we know what the final tally is tonight to discuss my future, of course, with my family, with the local association, with the party, and with those that are remaining in our caucus. And we'll certainly inform folks on what that decision is later on. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for the incredible support over these 14 years. And to the people of Nova Scotia, thank you for this incredible honor of being able to serve as the official opposition leader. And again, I want to congratulate the Premier and Claudia Chandra on their big wins tonight. Thank you.
That's Liberal leader Zach Churchill, who says he left it all on the ice tonight and during this campaign, couldn't get it over the line. He says he is maybe home for more Sunday dinners, and that this loss, I'm paraphrasing here, but rests on his shoulders.
Yeah, he said the loss belongs to me and me alone.
Yeah, so he's taking ownership of what happened here tonight.
And now talks about his future, right?
Well, his future tonight's not even settled
That is
yet.
true.
He still doesn't know what's happening with his own seat. There are still 5 polls to come, and with 5 polls to go, he is trailing Nick Hilton, the PC candidate, by 180 votes.
All right, let's get over to Paul, who has a closer look at some of those Liberal results.
Well, let's just take a look at actually, as things stand right now, in the riding of Yarmouth. Not clear what's going to happen tonight. Nick Hilton, you heard Zach Churchill refer to him. Nick Hilton with a 178 vote lead, with 35 of 40 polls reporting over Zach Churchill. That's why there's not that much clarity tonight coming out of Zach Churchill about his future. That will happen in the coming days and weeks, you would expect. Let's take a look at some places where the Liberals really did suffer tonight. The Tory machine just blew through the Annapolis Valley, sweeping that area. Julie Van Exen, the software person, winning there by 579 votes over Ramona Jennings. Again, the Liberal in this riding coming third. This is Cody Blois, the federal MP's former chief of staff there. Not a good sign for the federal Liberals in that part of Nova Scotia. And there we go. It is official, of course, with Ryan Robichaud defeating Ronnie LeBlanc of the Liberals there. This was the Liberal incumbent who hoped to hang on just on his name and his reputation within that riding. Was again snowed under by the Progressive Conservatives. Rick Burns with a 543 vote lead over the incumbent Ben Jessom. The Liberal who won back in 2013 was hoping to hang on in the face of the PC wave that's sweeping through Nova Scotia tonight. Rick Burns, at this point, we're not calling it, with 33 of 36 polls reporting, but things are looking good for Rick Burns tonight, getting a seat in Province House. Tom.
All right, Paul, thanks so much for that. Hard to not notice that so much of that map behind Paul is now blue tonight. A remarkable night for the PCs.
Well, and it really was 3 storylines. The Liberal collapse, the NDP getting to second place where they wanted to be, and then a huge victory for the PCs.
Province is blue from bottom to top pretty well now that they've got Clare. You can't get any further south except Yarmouth, and they may end the night with Yarmouth as well, and it goes all the way up to Glace Bay, where Johnny White was returned. A much more comfortable night for Johnny White than perhaps 3 years ago. Not as much waiting around, but yeah, it's a big night for them.
All right, there you go. The board, 42 for the PCs, leading and elected, 10 for the NDP, 2 Liberals. Zach Churchill's political future still not clear
waiting to hear.
at this hour exactly, and the one independent here in Nova Scotia. What a night it's been in Nova Scotia. There's more to come in our coverage, but right now we have to pause for a moment to say goodbye to our friends who have been tuning in on CBC News Network. Thank you so much for joining us. The National will begin shortly for you. If you want to stay with our election special, though, in Nova Scotia, it's been an exciting night.
It sure has.
We're on the main channel in the province, of course, and you can also find our digital streams on CBC Gem, on cbc.ca/ns, and on the CBC Nova Scotia YouTube page as well. So lots of places where you can continue to watch us. But thanks again so much for being with us tonight on what has been an historic and a very incredibly interesting political night here in Nova Scotia. All right, yeah, so an amazing night in Nova Scotia, and you know,
emotional night.
An emotional night. We saw, as the panel was saying, Tim Houston's as emotional as we've seen him before. Zach Churchill, you could see it on his face as soon as he walked into the room. Let's continue on that thought with the panel now, where we left them before the speech started up there. So Vernon Ramazar, over to you.